witch hunting. But in each of those cases, you see now, that is a summation. Something has happened and it's being explained, and the explanation is that they are being picked on, his allies. Now, someone is in government. Something happens, and it's something that shouldn't happen given the position the person has and what they're supposed to do. Or they do the complete opposite of what they're supposed to do. They're told, step aside. If they happen to be, or it is perceived that they happen to be in a camp, if there is such a camp indeed, and that camp is owned by the deputy president, that is perchance. That is the coincidence. But whatever they have done which is wrong still remains. It's the constant. So the other details are details. And you could argue that they're being told to step aside is just because they haven't done what they're supposed to do. That's it.
That's it.
That's it. If they belong to some other camp, that's a detail. Because what other details do we have of these individuals? Do they tell us where they come from? Do they tell us how many children they have, if they do? Do they have a wife? So many details pertain to this individual. But of all the details that you could pick on, they pick on this one. So, again, alternate reality, as I said, yes, because it suits a political narrative.
No, it suits this story, for example. But, you could also argue that, yes, this person has not managed their docket well, and they have left. They've left office, but they're not the only ones who the public has complained against.
Very true.
Right?
Very true.
So when you see now, if you isolate them and see, well, Mwangi Kiunjuri, Richard Echesa, then you see, what's the connection? There is some affiliation to the deputy president.
Yes. Now, if you contextualize it that way, then you would say that actually, given that there is a common thread that runs, you cannot ignore this thread. All right?
Yeah.
But all these constants, each of them are true. There's nothing there that is false. But if you only state one, because this is what they're saying, there's this and this and this, but because, what I was saying, that because is not the only because. There are other becauses.
There are other becauses.
Yes.
And all of them have to be taken into consideration to understand it completely.
Exactly.
Voila.
Exactly. And in fact, you can take it further. And you can ask the question, why is it there for then? Okay, or you can start by saying, are they the only people who have not perhaps lived up to the mandate of their office? You could ask that question. Then ask it further and say, all right, but if that is the case, then why is it that people who haven't lived up to their mandate seem to be associated with this individual? You see, now you're furthering the discussion.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, that is what I was referring to when I said the alternate reality. When you bring that discussion, you then say, actually, this thing is not as simple as we first thought, because there's more to it. And also, there's something else. There is the harm they have done. Is it possible that prior to this harm, that they actually did carry out the mandate of their office
Of their office, yes.
that is never brought in. The moment there's something that is impugned as wrong, anything else that you have done, even if it was good, nobody even wants to mention it.
There you go.
Yes.
So it gets a full 1.5 page coverage on this. This is a story. Ruto increasingly becoming an outsider in his own government. The president has succeeded in making his deputy the de facto leader of the opposition, much the same way his father, Jomo, turned Vice President Oginga Odinga into the government's most fierce critic while he was still in office.
Actually, if that story is to be told correctly, remember the disagreements at that point in time. If at the time, even at the dawn of independence, it did not start with Jaramogi and Kenyatta. It was Jaramogi and Mboya. The two are the ones who were skirmishing the most. That is actually a historical fact. And it just kept playing on and playing on and playing on. In fact, if you read Joseph Murumbi's book, it'll become clear that one of the things that puzzled him was why the president seemed to do nothing. He just sort of like sat back and let the two gentlemen squabble among themselves. And each of them was equally powerful.
Yeah.
Remember, at that point in time, the president, the constitution as we had, the president of the country was also the president of the party. So, in his absence, the deputy president or vice president of the party would become the president, and then the secretary general. And remember the Kilimuru conference that sort of like divided the vice presidency into now the 8 provinces that existed. That now, as they say, was the particular straw that did irreparable harm to this particular camel's back. Okay, and it continued. But again, there are historical facts around that particular story. By the time the issue of the party differences, remember, Jaramogi was not kicked out of KANU. He left. Please remember that little fact. Yes. Some could say he was nudged, but he left.
He made the decision to leave.
He is the one who made the decision to leave. Yes.
Whether it was the only decision to make at that point
Yes.
is not important.
Yes, and there are other facts that one can bring into the discussion and say, given these circumstances, he didn't see very many options left to him.
Yeah.
But again, that's adding to the discussion.
Of course, adding to discussion, and according to The Nation, Ruto was visiting a Sudan chicken farm as Uhuru reshuffled the cabinet. So he was off on other official duty, as it were.
Personal
duty.
Or was it official?
There
or
was a
personal?
combination of the two, from what we're reading here.
So Kenya wants to invest in Sudan's chicken.
In Sudan's poultry industry.
Uh-huh.
And he's at the forefront of this. He left Wilson Airport in Nairobi Tuesday morning via private jet to visit a successful chicken rearing project in Khartoum that he is keen on emulating. Now, whether he's keen on emulating this for the country or keen on emulating this for himself, those details are not given. However, he only returned home yesterday at around 4 p.m. because his charter flight had not been cleared on time. He visited a farm that rears 1.2 million chicken, producing 180,000 eggs a day.
Wow.
And was impressed by the intensive methods to ensure healthy, productive broods, including quality feeds, vaccination, quarantine, pen management, and proper handling of both layers and broilers. And this is what he posted on his Facebook page. He says, "We will replicate the best practices to realize food security, a centerpiece of the Big Four agenda." So, yes, he's very interested in this for the government's, or rather for the president's huge project. So he was working for the country at the time.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. We take that. It's okay. We will take it.
Yeah. Okay, interesting to see also that Matiang'i plans tough measures to crack down on terror and drugs. The government plans to step up the war against terror cells, automate citizen services, launch a ruthless war on drug cartels, introduce digital driving licenses, and reduce time taken to acquire crucial registration documents to 1 day. So identification documents, passports, birth and death certificates, 1 day. You apply in the morning. By the end of business, you will have your necessary documents.
That would be a very big step, right? So you apply for an ID this morning, and by end of day, it's ready.
Yes.
Passport the same.
Yes.
Birth certificate, death certificate, same.
Yes.
That certificate, did you say?
That's what they said, though.
Usually people apply for it on your behalf.
Yes.
Yes, now.
You've gone on to.
Now,
other
okay.
one.
So the
I'm
person
not
who's
saying
doing
that
it
you're
for you.
applying for your death certificate.
No, it's her.
No, the person that's doing it for you, even the person who is born, the parents doing it for you, they'll get it in a day. In
The
other
birth
words, I see what you're
certificate,
doing,
It's not
CT.
the baby who applies for the birth certificate.
I see what you're doing, CT, and I raise you ignoring.
Okay, so those who are applying for their death certificate,
Beware
yes, beware.
So
that you will go with your certificate.
Yeah.
get out of here, both of you. So
Or children applying for their birth certificates.
they'll walk on over to Sharia House.
Okay.
Now, in terms of when this will be rolled out, of course, talks are being had right now, but we don't know a certain date where all of this will happen. But it is all intended for this year, apparently.
Okay.
What's tickling you? Nothing. It's all intended for this year. So everybody's tough talking now. I think we saw, it's interesting because right after this cabinet reshuffle, where we saw some kind of injection of public confidence in Kenya, with saying, okay, get ahead and do your work done. We had bold statements coming out. Interior Ministry with the CS, of course, talking tough. We also saw a statement come out from the new CS for Agriculture yesterday, talking about what he intends to do concerning this locust thing that we see happening in the country. And of course, it just gives you this kind of, okay, everybody's hitting the ground running and want to let Kenyans know that we're actually getting the job done. So we've seen two major ones come out since yesterday. Probably
How much
likely
they
to
say they're
see...
spending on this? 200 million.
Yes, 200 million shillings.
They're getting, so they have, there's an organization that deals with locust invasion in the region.
Yes.
This organization has planes at its disposal. We also have very many other organizations that look at this, like we've been talking about ICP and the rest. Then we are saying that now the locusts have invaded 8 counties.
Yes.
We were warned about these locusts coming, and the government is still saying this matter is under control. It's under control when those things have cleared the vegetation in 3 counties completely, and they're moving to the other 5.
And they're in Laikipia as of last night. Unfortunately, this is the thing. It is not under control right now. It is at the stage where the aerial spraying will not work. It should have taken place before the swarms reached where they currently are. So unfortunately, we're dealing with something over our heads, which shouldn't, again. And we keep saying, yeah, okay, well, you said that. No, it's important to keep saying it because, yes, it is over our heads, number one. Number two, we were warned about it and then we're not able to do anything about it. We're not willing or thought that maybe the swarm was not as large as that
if you look at what we're discussing in isolation, it looks like it's a very odd thing. But most of last year, we actually not just touched on, but we discussed this at great length. And just look at the escalation of it. It is just the same thing manifesting itself in a different area of our lives.
Right.
Okay. We talked about the increase in taxes. It's not any different. It's the same impunity. Somebody decides. If it's NHIF, somebody decides. All right? If it is school fees, somebody decides. If it is lecturers being paid. Think of anything that has raised eyebrows and has been a point of acrimony and probably very negative discussions. You will find someone or a group of people or a department or a ministry financed, know their mandate, does the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Or what was supposed to be done glaringly isn't done. And the people who suffer are the Wananchi. You had the floods. The previous year, we had famines. I mean, it's the same story over and over and over. And the only time you hear activity is when money has been allocated. Suddenly, there's
people
a
are
lot of
about,
activity.
Yeah.
Yes. And people are doing this, and this is being suggested, and we're going to move this. Right now, with the exception of the president making a statement of 5 billion being allocated for people who've been displaced by the floods, there was silence in that field. It was forgotten. And the rains haven't abated, by the way.
Of course.
The rains haven't abated. In fact, they're actually falling. It's like with greater vigor even now. And you know why it's worse? Children have gone back to school.
Right.
Children back to school.
Yeah. Yes.
It's not painting a very clear and clean picture for the government.
No,
So Peter
it really
Munya is
isn't.
also quoted as having said that the prevailing conditions in Somalia and Yemen are also impacting on us heavily because the wars in Somalia, the war in Yemen, means that those 2 countries are not being able to control the locusts. They're breeding there and they're coming en masse. So, because those governments are practically non-existent or unable to deal with those breeding grounds.
You know what that's
So those
saying?
things
That's
come.
like saying my neighbor's house is on fire and the fire is spreading towards my house, but rather than get water and what I need to do to put the fire out, I'm just going to stand there and watch it burn.
and see.
Because the fire did not originate in my house, the 2 neighbors where there was an electrical fault, I'm just going to stand and let this one now continue burning in my home. I mean, come on. No.
Issues.
That was a very strange statement for him to have started his tenure.
Well, no.
Yes.
But there's something positive. He increased the price of milk.
Of milk.
Yes, by 6 shillings. So the farmers will now be able to get 6 shillings more. So it isn't the only thing he has said. Again, the alternate reality. You see, on the one hand, you could ask, what on earth does Yemen have to do with us? Actually, the point he's making is a valid one.
It is a valid
It's a valid one, but it doesn't detract. Neither does it remove the responsibility that ministry has, not is supposed to have, on ensuring that the locust stops being a menace.
There you go.
Yes.
The AIC Church has had one of the longest serving heads, right? This is Bishop Silas Yago. He announced his retirement last December. Now, the AIC Church has a new head. This is Bishop Abraham Mulwa. He'll take over from Bishop Silas Yago.
What an appropriate first name, Abraham.
Abraham Mulwa.
That's a good name.
Yeah.
Good name for a bishop.
Yep.
Yeah? Okay. You like that, CT?
It is.
There was a lot of jostling actually in the lead up to this appointment. Is it election or appointment? Election. And of course, it had to go tribal.
Of course.
The AIC Church is very strong in Ukambani. The AIC Church is very strong in Kalenjin land
And Luoland.
and Luoland.
Yes.
So it was tribal. that said,
Let's rotate this thing.
the Kalenjin have held it for long, so let's move it around. So who are we going to give it to next?
By the way, if you imagine that's where the politics is, you should go to the Anglican Church.
Hey, Omo, serious something.
Whoa.
It's not a laughing matter.
Whoa. You think
So
these national elections have steam?
Nothing. Anglican.
Man.
Anglicans have it, man.
From point of deacon going up.
You
Even start from catechist.
They can actually shame the MCAs and the MPs who vie for these things. The intensity with which those things are approached, you need to see it to believe it.
All right, something that might be a little bit difficult to believe. Well, actually, maybe not too difficult to believe. Africa struggles to stem deadly flood of counterfeit medicines. Looking at some staggering figures here, the World Health Organization says about 100,000 people on the continent die from taking fake or substandard drugs each year. Since 2013, Africa has made up to 42% of the fake medicine seized worldwide. The two drugs most likely to be out of date or poor, ineffective copies are antibiotics and anti-malarials. So, yeah, it is estimated that between 30 and 60% of the medicine sold in Africa is fake, and most of it comes from China or India. Efforts to staunch the deadly torrents of counterfeits have made a little headway in the last 10 years.
When they say fake, what do they mean?
Fake as by it's not the real thing and it's not going to work. Because this all stems...
Not generic.
No, not generic. Fake as in
fake.
Either it's chalk or what you think to be. We're not talking about generic and
but
brand.
Even some generic brands can be considered fake, and I'm going to explain why. You see, the active ingredients in that particular drug that make it work, sometimes it has been claimed that in some generic medicines, the quantities aren't what they claim it to be. So it will not actually do what it's supposed to do. You may feel like you're getting better, but you actually don't actually heal completely because the ingredients are, should we say, minimized.
Yeah.
Yes. So that, again, I think would qualify as fake.
That's a fake.
Yes.
It is. Yeah.
That's a fake one.
Because genuine is supposed to provide that healing process which they promise.
Right. And this story,
its
of course,
efficacy.
this report premised on the fact of stories of people who were sick with either malaria or other infectious diseases and took medicine, and after 4 days there was no relief, because with antibiotics they say by the third day you start to feel some relief. The first day you feel worse than before, but by the third day you feel better. In this instance, this gentleman felt worse, getting to the point where his kidneys had actually been suffering some kind of damage as a result of the drugs that he took. Now, this is just one story out
Just
of
ingesting poison.
hundreds of thousands. Exactly. And I think this is what now caused them to look into this further and do this report. So I think it is very important for people to be very sure of what it is that you're ingesting when you're sick. And of course,
But how
that
would
means
you
that the reins need to be tightened at the board level
Yeah.
when these drugs are actually coming into the country, because they have to pass one standard mark and they have to also pass the regulations.
So the importation.
At
But
the
I'm
importation
of course, you'll imagine that the person who's importing fake drugs is not going to use the formal channels.
This is the problem. And then,
So
of course,
they
there's
use
a lot of self-medication and self-diagnosis where people say, okay, well, I have a headache, I must have malaria, or I walked in the rain yesterday, now I have tuberculosis, kind of thing, So they go into the pharmacy and they say, okay, I'm not going to go through this whole thing of consultation at hospital to pay 2,000 shillings or whatever. I know how I'm feeling. This is what I must have. I go to a pharmacy who's not going to even ask you for a prescription. They give you the medicine and voila, you end up with something different.
It's a big thing.
And it's rife.
This is a big thing. This is where actually, just like the president was talking about the NIS looking and conducting a review of cartels. Conducting a review of cartels means that you already know the cartels.
They know, they're aware. It's just
But you've been just letting them operate. So conducting a review of also the people who are importing or making and circulating fake drugs, and let's see them in court. Big time. Today is Thursday. It's the day for the home and away pullout on the Standard. And the headline in the home and away pullout today is Builders in Kenya's Next City Struggle to Let or Sell. Nakuru is ranked as one of the easiest towns to do business in, but office and retail investors have a different take on this reputation as the review rents downwards to attract clients. So new people have actually gone and invested heavily in the real estate sector in Nakuru County, but due to harsh economic times, they're actually seeing that their businesses are not moving,
Right.
not able to sell, not able to let.
Wow.
So they're dropping prices just to try and attract. They're competing at price level now.
It's interesting because we see quite a number of organizations doing this, even at small business level. But then we've seen some of the big pay TVs like DSTV doing the same thing. We've seen Kenya Airways with this huge, we saw Jambo Jet with the huge offers that are being given, kind of to get more people to come in and buy, because people are not buying, not because they don't want to, but because they don't have the wherewithal to. Maybe a bit of a worrying statistic there.
Yeah. It's quite worrying.
So Trump will be on the chopping block from next Tuesday, it's likely. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell leaves. He left after speaking at a press conference in Washington, D.C. on the 14th. And he announced that U.S. President Donald Trump's impeachment trial will begin on Tuesday, January 21st. He faces abuse of power charges and obstruction of Congress work. And McConnell said he expected the House of Representatives to deliver the articles of impeachment against Trump in the upper chamber on Wednesday, which was yesterday. And he says that we believe that if this happens, in all likelihood, we'll go through preliminary steps here this week, which would well include the Chief Justice coming over and swearing in members of the Senate and some other kinds of housekeeping measures.
Right. Drama.
But even more drama. You see, attention has been turned away from the killing of Soleimani. Now it's focusing on the Ukrainian plane which was shot down.
Yep.
And even the president of Iran and the religious boss are now asking the military to kindly furnish them with explanations as to how they managed to shoot down a civilian plane. Now, of interest...
Pressure from inside.
Yes, and the protests are now not anymore about Soleimani.
It's not an anti-American.
No. It has turned. It is now how it is that the Iranian people were lied to.
Yeah. Took so long. This thing, imagine, killed, was it 81 or 82 Iranian nationals,
Yes.
right,
Yeah.
who were aboard that flight.
Yes.
So somebody was saying this is the work of the CIA.
Of course.
CIA at best.
Yes, I am sure. Now, conspiracy theories.
Yeah, we'll come up with all those things.
I'm sure they must be turning all colors of the rainbow with this one here, because really this one,
Played you.
it's fraught with, come on. So many perspectives, so many possibilities. But remember again, the issue of alternate reality. Prior to Soleimani's death, Iranians had been protesting.
Yeah.
And for the longest possible time. Now remember, if you give these protests a historical perspective, their Shah, the gentleman who had been emperor king of that country following the lineage, which they said was something like 1,500 years old, this is how his toppling began. People began protesting. Ayatollah at that time was in exile in Paris, otherwise known as Paris. Okay? So, the protests in Iran have a history behind it, and this is something...
People in Iran protest.
They do.
It's
Yes.
like coming out and saying hi to one another. Hi.
Sasa.
There are three of us. All right. So now today, what is it about? Ayatollah must go.
Yes.
Or Rouhani, the president, must go.
They've had a long history of protests. Yes.
It just also seems, looking at the other side of it, that now somehow the Americans have been able to now convince the Iranians to go against their government in terms of these protests.
This is what I'm trying to say, that the Americans are going to be given credit. Now, remember, the Shah was someone the Americans supported.
Yep.
Please understand. Now, so are you telling me that the Americans supported protests to remove a person who was serving their interests? How is it possible? You see
No, it's not.
You see why the narrative is incomplete? These people actually, remember, this is an old civilization. These are Persians.
The Persians.
Yeah.
They had an empire. They had a civilization. Okay. Now, the issue of protests, they've had them for the longest time. And it doesn't matter who's in power. They've even protested, as you correctly put it, against the same Ayatollah. So these people will protest.
Oh, yeah, they will protest. They were protesting against Soleimani himself. So,
Yes, they will.
It was not... They protested.
Nobody
Some
is
factions
spared.
didn't. So
No,
everybody was protested against.
You could
so,
argue they are some of the most democratic people
Oh, yes.
on the planet.
Oh, yes. I think so. So let's come back home. The Pangani Affordable Housing Project now gets underway. Remember the issue of coming up with new houses? New 1,434 residential housing units along Racecourse Road in Pangani, Nairobi. The project is now underway. It's on a 5.2-acre piece of land. Initially, what happened is the people who were living in this area were told to vacate, to move, and then the project could kick off. This is being done by a private company called Technofin Kenya Limited, which has been given the job by the government. And then now Technofin has hired a contractor, China Wuyi. A long process. So Technofin, and then now Technofin manages the entire process. Then China Wuyi, you guys just build the houses. Maybe now Technofin will now deal with the selling of the houses through the Stima Investment Cooperative Society.
Actually, they are the developers.
China Wuyi is a constructor.
Yes,
the contractor.
That one.
Okay.
Builder, in other words. So they are the ones who won the contract because it was a competitive process. They won it, and this is not last year. Something like 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's been on for some time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's been the back and forth and the usual red tape that is required in these processes. Yes. And it falls under what you call the urban renewal project. Yes. Old estates that have been there for a long time, and the estates whose houses have been in a clear state of disrepair to the point of actually being dangerous and harmful to the inhabitants. This is part of the process that is ongoing. And it's an idea that, as I said, it's been in there in the books. It wasn't just Nairobi. It's Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu. All the cities in this country that have had public housing are going to go through this particular process.
If we actually got this thing right, you can imagine 5 acres in just Racecourse Road getting 1,400 new houses out of 28. We had 48 houses before.
Yes, just 48.
We get 1,400 in that piece of land. Now, the entire Eastlands is over 1,000 acres. It's actually what? It's 16,000 acres.
It's a lot of land, Chief.
We can accommodate the entire Nairobi city there.
It's possible to be done.
Oh, it's possible.
It's possible
it's
to be
just-
done.
If you plan it and actually
There
action
you
it
go.
well.
That's the word. If you plan it,
And then action it.
yes, that's the thing.
You'll be amazed at what you can do.
18 floors. So the tenants who were there before, of course, remember we had even talked about this much earlier last year. They were each getting 600,000 shillings to facilitate relocation.
Right.
And
It was
then-
essentially to go and be able
Like,
to live elsewhere
relocate,
while this was,
to relocate
and then
as we-
given the
as we
option of
construct.
coming back.
Yep.
Again, there were issues around it, but you see, part of this particular development has a strong element of what you call social housing.
Yeah.
Meaning, they are not taking the strict letter of the law. The strict letter of the law would indicate you are a tenant of the council or the county. What the county requires is to give you notice.
Yeah. And
That's
then
it.
you just go.
And then you go. But they figured, no. These houses, unfortunately, had a new component. People had lived in these houses generationally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as Kenyans would say, this was their Oshago. So, but they didn't just stop at giving them money for relocation. They were offered, again, residential houses, the same house. They were offered units at concessionary rates.
They'll be paying 8,000 bob a month.
Yes. Meaning what you are paying
you
as
believe?
rent. No, he's
Rent
right.
to
Yeah, I
own.
know. I mean, it's fantastic.
What you are paying as rent before
Yeah.
is what you'll keep
You'll keep
paying,
paying
to own the house.
this house.
Yes. And they even give if you don't want to own it, then you can still rent it at the same
The
rate.
same rate.
It's a beautiful deal.
I think
Isn't it a
so.
wonderful deal?
It's
It's a wonderful
fantastic.
deal. I hope it actually goes through very well. They had already announced that people who would like to buy houses here can apply, and the application process has been announced and recorded.
This is positive development.
And
And I really
there are
hope-
agencies that deal with such things who can be contacted for this.
I hope it remains above board, though,
And I really hope that such
By
things
the
can
way-
be replicated.
because
By
this
the
is
way-
where the issue of who ended up with those houses will emerge.
Actually, it's an issue, but remember, these are private developers, and their concern is, at the end of the day, to make some money. So if you apply and you're able to meet the demands,
then why not?
I don't think they're going to have a quarrel. They're not going to be picky about
After
who
all,
it is who gets
their
the...
problem
And
is
that
the
they
money.
should.
Oh,
They should.
Why should they
Because
be
you'll
picky?
find that somebody can actually come and take like 10 units. or 15 units.
Let me explain.
We
At
should
the end of the
consider
day, what they want is the
we should
money.
consider
This is the thing.
This
No.
is government. It's a government project.
Right.
It's
What
government
Eric,
land.
what Eric is saying,
This
does make
person has
sense.
just
Oh,
been
absolutely. I
contracted
agree.
as
And
a
I'm
developer.
saying, I think
do
so
this
too.
job.
I believe that
But ensure that
in terms of
some certain people in the county government and national government are not coming and
are not
owning an entire
benefiting.
block.
Absolutely.
Eric, if you read the fine print of what it is they're doing, what you'll find, everybody benefits in a sense. The tenants benefit. The county has to benefit because remember they earned an income when these tenants were there.
Yeah.
So there'll be houses allocated to the county. So their income base will also increase. But of significance, remember, when you own a house in this county, the rates that you pay. So once again, they will have increased a revenue source for this very, very same county.
Yeah.
Now, as to the ownership, it is going to be advertised and you will apply like anybody else can apply. Now, when you ask, what if somebody wants to, say, own 20 units? Put it this way. Even as people apply, I'm sure due diligence will be done to ensure that somebody doesn't call himself X and then calls himself Y, then calls himself Z.
Paperwork.
Because at the end of the day, there's documentation that will be required even as you are buying this thing. And at the verification of documentation, you'll be able to unearth what you're actually saying. It is not impossible. Neither is it difficult. Yes.
If it remains above board, it's not impossible. When it's not, just like we see in very many cases, is when you'll be having cases being taken to the DPP years after people have bought houses, and then you realize City Muga actually owns 20 units here through various proxies. We need to ensure that this is actually protected against that.
One could argue that, again, you will be acting against the very concept of free enterprise.
No. No. Anyway, it's a government plan and it's a government homes agenda. So it's when it's government, it has elements of social. 25 minutes to 7 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We've been taking a look at what's in the headlines. Remember, you can download the standard e-paper app on Google Play Store and Apple App Store. Just one subscription fee. You get to access all of Standard Group's publications, including today's Pull Out, Home and Away. Good morning.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Traffic.
So it's day 4 of a walking nation at Mwiki Kasarani. Of course, the protests are continuing this morning, seeing that the entire road from way inside Mwiki until the junction is a total mess, and no public service vehicles are accessing that area. So we see that once again. We've got showers, of course, in many parts of the city this morning, so that already has begun to affect traffic, because we see traffic past Mlolongo inbound Mombasa Road, and that has already built up as you head down towards Nyayo Stadium. Looking at what's happening on Thika Road as well, yes, it seems that we do have some traffic there as well already at Garden City and trying to pile up into the city or a CBD. All right, very slow on Langata Road already. Nothing to report though around about Kenyatta Avenue, Bunyala Road, Haile Selassie. Nothing much going on there right now. Definitely we have not reached traffic hour yet, but we'll let you know what it looks like in a short while. Don't forget, Spice FM KE is how you can reach us on Twitter. Let's know how we can keep people moving this morning. Also, you can give us a call, 0719-012-600. We'll let you know what it looks like in the rest of the country in a short while.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
The live stream is up. Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and as well as our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, right here on Spice FM, 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, and 97.7 in Malindi. In the room this morning, Siti Muga, Eric Latif, and Nduoko.
Right. Over the last few months, many months, you could say easily years, the confidence or trust in government as public institutions has waxed and waned, has really actually waned and not waxed. Now, when we look at what is necessary to keep a country going, when you lose public confidence or when you lose trust in your government, it's tantamount to losing social capital. And as we look at things that need to be done, when you get your people to trust you, when you get your people to trust what a government can be able to do for them, that means, of course, being able to meet your basic needs, having an environment that is conducive, for example, job creation, business operations, etc., etc. That's when you know and you say, okay, yes, for real, my government actually is then working for me as an individual, working for me as a community, or me as a career person. Now, leaders need to make sure that they do not strip the public of its ability to then operate in a positive way. Because what happens is that when you lose public confidence, or when you lose the trust that people might have in you as a government, it becomes it becomes a people that will be then very difficult to govern, unfortunately. Recently, we've seen kind of injection in public confidence in the people. And recently, I mean by 2 days, we saw the cabinet reshuffle. And just after that, we saw quite a number of announcements or pronouncements that have been made by individuals who were previously in government or those who've been put in new positions. Most recently, we've also seen that even with the slow economy, almost 1 million jobs actually have been created in this country. There has been positive developments, but unfortunately, not being told about them also then makes it seem as if they do not exist. Injection of public confidence, injection or re-injection of trust for the people, into the people, is something that is extremely important, as alongside doing the work that is necessary for a government to have been done. Now, looking at the importance of this is why we have to say that it's important to share information. It's important to communicate, because if you don't do that, this constant state of mistrust, this constant state of lack of confidence is something that is going to continue over time. What has been done is important. What has been done is good, but it needs to continue to live out its life. It needs to be more deliberate. It needs to be more focused, or people are going to continue to lose any kind of hope or any of the little trust that they have left. Again, looking at the fact that people who don't trust you then are very, very difficult to govern or rule over. Now, I am saying that with what we've seen recently, this needs to continue. Apart from the plan, the action definitely needs to take place. It's interesting because public confidence, or we say trust in governments, is waning the world over. Of course, we can look at Kenya and be very insular about what the people are seeing or experiencing. But around the world, this is happening. People don't trust their governments anymore because of things that they have seen. And interestingly enough, one of the major factors contributing to this is lack of information from a government perspective in terms of what is really happening. And this is one of the tenets of development. If you want to see that people have some kind of hope or trust in you, you got to let them know some of the good things that you do, because what it does is that it brings a state of awareness of really what is happening. And that has something to do, it plays psychologically on the people to say, yes, we actually are moving forward. And I don't think we've actually realized the psychology of this, to say that it is important then to let people know that we're actually working in one way or another. Coming out of a report yesterday from the can I say now confirmed CS for the Treasury, he said, you know what, we have done. Looking at this report over the last 1 year, even with the economy being so slow, we have actually been able to create almost 1 million jobs. I think the number was very close to 850,000, just over 850,000. And these are documented that they've been able to do. But this never showed previously, Nobody had this information. Nobody knew what sectors we were talking about. But then suddenly when you look at it, you say, oh, okay, this is something that they were actually able to do, but never shared this information with us.
You see where the problem arises. The moment you make such a statement, I will ask the question, over what period of time?
In a year.
Interestingly,
Yes.
in a year, in 12 months, they were able to create 850,000 jobs.
Okay, this was which period of time?
In 2018, the economy created 840,600 new jobs, according to data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. That's in 2018.
And they tell us the sectors in which these jobs were created, of course.
Yes, of course, they'll now list the
They'll
sectors.
break it down.
right?
Yes.
Many of them will be in the informal sector.
Yes, of
And
course, the
then-
majority.
And then you'll see in 2019, 300,000 new jobs were created, an additional 300,000.
And yet, the TSC will tell us that there are 300,000 trained teachers who don't have jobs.
Yes.
So, and yet, we will also be told that our schools do not have adequate teachers.
And companies are downsizing.
Yes. So, you see, that's where the anomaly comes in. Because when you talk about the informal sector, it's a bit difficult to determine. You can say, I like the phrasing of it, they have created. Okay? They're not saying they found jobs, meaning there are initiatives that have been put in place that have the possibility of creating those jobs.
Yes.
Now, the question is, the evidence of those jobs having been created. The onus is also on the government to actually say, guys, you may think we are just sort of like issuing out hot air, but let us give it to you sector by sector. In this sector, this is what we've done.
This is what happened.
And the jobs. In this sector, this is what. You can't leave it in some database and say it's the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics alone. No. It won't cut it. It has to be detailed. And in this county, we've done this. And in this county, we've done this. Then people say, oh, I see.
I think it's absolutely necessary to do that. I mean, we're just not, in terms of not just sharing blanket information and say yes, because it seems like a big number and almost would seem sensationalist for a lot of people. Wow, 1 million jobs in a year, fantastic. This is good in terms of the information, but I do agree that you actually have to go granular and say, in this sector, we created X number of jobs, and we can see the evidence of such in county X, Y, Z. In this sector, this is what we created. And people are going to say, it's hard work. Well, absolutely. Trust is not something that you can just get by a snap of the fingers.
It's a lot of
You got to
work.
do a lot of work to be able to reclaim that trust. Because when you're saying reclaim, that means at some point, somebody had that trust in you as a government, whether the individuals were there or not. They had trust in the government as Kenyans to say, yeah, this can actually get done. Our livelihoods are being protected and secured. Now, over time, they lost the trust because there was something you were not sharing with them. Now, if you want to gain it back, then you're going to have to break a sweat at some point. If you say you did it, then you should be able to show us evidence of the same. And goes without saying that when you get to the details, then you get people to say, okay, yes, they actually are working. And with this, then I am satisfied.
The first point, I think, is education. Because when people hear 840,000 new jobs, you
Yes.
first think people have been employed by government.
Yes.
And
Right.
you're thinking the government has employed it? No. How?
No, how?
Is that-
Where?
It's impossible. All right? The second thing that people will think, well, people have been employed in formal sector. Where you're talking about big companies have come, they've set up, they're employed. This one employed 100,000, this other one employed 50,000 people. Because for you to have 840,000 new jobs created, then you have to see a huge number of people actually employed in one company.
True.
You don't see that. So to explain what exactly you mean when you say creation of jobs, it's very important. Maybe you're even talking about when somebody has been let's say has been retrenched and they've gone and started a small business, and in that small business they've employed 2 people. Those are 3 new jobs. If that's what it means,
This is it.
explain it so that people can see this is what it actually means, and it means opportunities. It means people have new income. Then also you'll start asking yourself, so if we have 840,000 new jobs, does that mean that KRA now is actually able to get payee from
840,000 people? Of course,
that
and I
what
think
it
there are
means?
many more
It
things that
doesn't
then need
mean
to be
that.
uncovered, and the onion, the layers need to be peeled away to actually see what's in the center. Because then, of course, they talk about creating a conducive environment. Now, what does that mean? Easing the burden of the licenses that you must get for business so that you in turn can hire individuals to work for you. Does that mean giving tax holidays to then make it easier? Does that mean reducing taxes or reducing the long process that you must go to, kind of thing? So all of that needs to be debunked.
Are we talking about permanent or casual jobs?
Of course. And this is what we are saying. To really have, because again, you don't inject this kind of hope or trust in people by being ambiguous or not giving enough information. Once you do give information, we've talked many times about, look, you need to tell people how it is. Tell us how it is so that we know where we stand. At the end of the day, even if you tell them we're at zero, people are not going to stop being called Kenyan, right? Unless they go and take up another citizenship in another country.
Even then, you're still Kenyan.
Even then, you're still Kenyan. The majority of the people are going to stick with you, right? For better, for worse, as it is, as it were. The marriage between the citizen and the government is going to stay in place. So you want to be in a situation where there's some kind of trust between the two of you. To say that which you've elected or appointed me to do, I'm actually going to do it and get it done. And in the absence of that ability, I'm also going to let you know that this is where we are. Because we've seen in other countries in the world, those who succeed the most are those who are very transparent with their people. You're going to tax them 60%. Here's the evidence of that tax. This is what we're doing. You're going to pay highly for housing, but then we're going to make education free until higher education, until higher university level. We're going to make sure that if for some reason you go broke, we're going to be able to give you money and feed you for at least 12 months coming out of the government purse, kind of thing, as a result of everybody paying a high tax. So then yesterday we saw the minister or the cabinet secretary for interior, Matiang'i, talk about the fact if you go down to Nyayo House now, it's 6:49. The throngs of people waiting in that tent out there to have their picture taken to get a new passport is unbelievable. Even after there was a cleanup in that sector.
It's still
unbelievable.
There.
Yes.
Even using the new system, the e-citizen system.
Yes.
Where you apply to get a date and therefore the dates are...
Now, you'll apply today to get your passport, right? I know because I did this.
For the date of...
you will apply to get your passport. You do all that you need to do. You make the payment. Then you finish all that and they give you a date. It will not be tomorrow. It will be at least 1 month.
Right.
Okay, so today is what? The 16th of January. You're likely to get an appointment to have your picture taken in February. Okay, now, even on the day that you've been given now to have your passport picture taken, there are at least 300 people in a tent waiting for their number to be called. At least. And this is one location. One location at Nyayo House. We're not talking about other locations. Maybe, of course, as it's decentralized, we see other counties. But how many people in Nairobi are going to travel to another county to have their picture taken, right? So now what he has said, again, injecting hope or trust in people to say, okay, we see your plight. We understand how difficult it has been. And we also know that it is possible to have this thing done in 24 hours. We can actually do it. So what we are saying is now, however my people are going to do it in the back end or in the back office, that is up to us. But I'm telling you, the people of Kenya, birth certificate, yes, CT, we know it's the parents who will take you. Death certificate, your bereaved will take.
Clarity is so wonderful.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Isn't it?
Thank you. And the death certificate.
The people who suffer the loss
yes.
will then take the documentation on your behalf.
But passport, you. All right.
Identification document, you. One day.
Driving
so if you
license,
apply in the morning, 8 o'clock, 5 p.m.
It should be ready.
So now, this is great because the euphoria that comes with it is fantastic. But the problem that now comes in is the how will it be done?
Yes.
Actually.
Is it going to start tomorrow? Does that mean
when?
me who was given my documents last month, does that mean that now today I'll go to Nyayo House and they told me one day so I'll get it? Now that's where the problem comes in. Then you begin to mistrust again because
It's
we're
the
not
clarity
being
of what's,
exactly
how it's reported.
The
If he
clarity
had
doesn't
said
come in.
From June, we're going to do this. So between now and June, we'll clear the backlog that we have. And then from June, you'll have a new system. It becomes clear. So
do you know, imagine if while also a huduma numbering and giving people IDs, you said, while we're giving you IDs, we also want to give every Kenyan a passport.
at the same time.
It
Same
makes
process.
it easy.
It
So
makes it much
every
easier.
Kenyan has a passport. So
Yeah.
what we'll be doing is determining the times of renewal.
Yeah.
So because you still have to pay for it. So you can even budget for the amount of money you're going to get when people are paying for their passports. But then you have a situation where the issue of passports stop being this teeth-pulling exercise that
I'm
it has
telling
been
you.
from time immemorial.
Without even understanding that it's actually your right.
Yes.
It is your right as a Kenyan to have a passport. I was in Nigeria at Christmas time. And now when you're getting your passport renewed, an edict from government that you must have, whether you're domiciled or living outside the country, you must then get your the new identification. And guess what? When you're doing your passport, then right there and then the ID is issued for you, because not this business of going and coming back taking another picture, because it's still you, right? So it looks like
And those pictures are digital nowadays.
Yes.
exactly.
Can
So
be
it can
used
be
for-
used, and you have the information anyway. So what are we doing here?
So I can renew my ID. Well, I already have a renewed passport. So that new generation ID is what you're talking about. So
Yeah.
when you apply now for a passport, they tell you
Once and for all, you
Once
get
and
the
for
new
all,
one.
you
Let's
Or
go.
when you apply for an
ID, you should
they-
get
You get the
yes,
passport at the
exactly.
same
So
time.
you do this once and for all, and
you're done.
yes.
And how I know it can be done is that Nigeria has over almost 200 million people, and somehow they manage by it must be a miracle.
And this is Nigeria.
But this is Nigeria. Somehow I can apply for my passport in the morning at 8:00. I did not see anybody. I went, they took my picture, I came back. I come back at 5:00. By 6:00, I have my new passport.
This is a situation with Kenya's biggest conversation.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So what you're discussing in this hour is about restoring and maintaining public trust and confidence. This is of the government. Of course, naturally, citizens will occasionally lose trust in their government. Now, it's a government's job to ensure that we maintain these relations.
Part of the reason is, of course, the government had to take responsibility for the citizens losing trust. The natural inclination of the citizenry is to trust the government.
Yep.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So you have to work at building this mistrust.
You must have done a lot. Exactly.
Yes, you have to work
You
at
must
it.
have done
yes.
a lot to get them
over
off.
a long period of time and continuously so. And even then, when the government says they're going to do something, people immediately rush into believing that this will be so. You see, where the problem arises, if you ask me, is not in the utterances of the government, but in the clarity of the utterances, as you've been trying to say. Many people don't actually know that in this country, you actually can't get your passport in a day. And it's not even those many hours. You go in the morning at 8 or 9. Believe me, by 2 o'clock you have your
You
passport.
have your passport.
Yes. You don't have to see anyone or talk to anyone privately.
Or to know anyone.
No, you don't.
It can actually be
You
done.
don't. It's like if, say, for instance, you want a visa to some countries, they have what they call a VIP section where you pay a little more money to have certain things. It's clear. If you feel you want an express service, pay this amount of money, go there, you'll receive that service. So all I'm saying is, again, there's clarity. Many government edicts are generalized. So you're not quite sure what the details are. And the problem with that is that we fill in the details ourselves. And then you find that what you filled in is not true. Then the element of disappointment starts generating.
Setting in.
Yes, it sets in, and then it becomes the norm. And yet
Yeah.
it didn't need to be.
Yeah, because I can tell you the fact. Look, I will predict now that everybody who's sitting out there today is going to be a bit disgruntled, because as far as they're concerned, whatever was said yesterday meant that from today they
I'm
will
getting
have
my
their
passports.
passport at the end of the day. And that's what you said. So now there's so many holes that need to be filled, but people through their experience are going to then fill these holes themselves, and then that will be the narrative that is spun, whereas there was a perfect opportunity for that education or that information to have been shared, and it wasn't. Now, it's clear to me that information and clarity have to be foolproof all the way, end to
The
end.
problem with transparency as well is it increases accountability. Now, does the government want to be held accountable for everything that it has said? That's
the
one
thing
of
is,
the issues.
you want you actually
If you
to
put
be
yourself out there and say, this is what we're going to do, this is what we are doing, then you're actually exposing yourself to further accountability, because you're saying, this is how we created the jobs. The people start asking you, where are those jobs? Can you show us the jobs? If people start understanding a lot more of what the government is doing, then the people start demanding a lot more. And the government feels if they demand too much and we're not able to deliver, then we appear like we are failing. So it's the other way around as well.
So I hear you saying the government is an advantage if the people are actually a bit unaware of what's really going on.
Sirikali is not Sirikali for no reason. Sirikali, that opaqueness helps them survive. Because when you operate like this, then, come in and I'll give you an answer 3 weeks down the road. It doesn't matter.
It's interesting you should say that, because one, it just doesn't reflect what the government thinks, but it reflects the mindset of those who are in leadership. Because they're the ones who determine the particular operationalization of that thought process, which then become government edicts, government rules, government blah, 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 blah. What harm would it do if they perhaps focus on a little more truth? Not political speak, just truth.
Just truth.
And say, look, please let us talk as fellow citizens. This is the situation. But it becomes tricky, as you say correctly, because somebody will then say, okay, we've understood what you've said, but if we recall correctly, the budget for this was this, isn't it?
Yeah.
How much have you spent? And if this hasn't been spent, where is it?
Where has the rest
Nobody
gone?
wants those questions asked.
If you bring yourself up to this kind of scrutiny, then it means that you're exposing yourself.
Yes, exactly.
And if you're actually doing the right thing, then you shouldn't be afraid of this
now
kind
the
of
problem
scrutiny.
is the government has so many people that
Are
not
not doing
all of
the
them
right
are
thing.
going to
This
be
is
doing
the
the right
problem.
thing.
There are people who are representing themselves.
Yes.
Where they should be representing
In
the
that
public.
same government.
Yes.
It's coming up to 7 o'clock. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads, and then we continue the conversation. Restoring and maintaining public confidence and trust of the public with the government. This is what we're discussing in this hour. The government has a role to play in ensuring that we are more aware of what it's doing, so we can have more confidence in the work that it's doing on a daily basis. Good morning. It's Spice FM at 7 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
Right. Traffic on Waiaki Way is said to be of monumental proportions. It started all the way at the Udhiru Junction to Kabete, and that is what we see this morning. Not happening, trying to get us down to the Museum Hill round, of course, down to Museum Hill, and then trying to get into the CBD. We know that it is day 4 of a walking nation in Kasarani Mwiki, and people are going to have to walk until something is done about it. But the protests there continue, where we saw yesterday, unfortunately, one individual lost their life. Okay, Langata Road is actually a mess all the way from the Galleria Mall and coming down towards Bomas of Kenya and then out towards the T-Mall Junction. We do have some traffic. Thika Road, it's jam all the way. People are asking what's up. This is what's up. It's a normal traffic that you would see on your way to work. Let's see what it looks like in a short while, but you should actually be out in good time. Mombasa Road, of course, serving up traffic vibes this morning, and we're trying to open that up for you. You can definitely use the southern bypass today because that seems to be clear and free. The eastern bypass also serving up good vibes right now. Hopefully that doesn't clog up too fast. Spice FM KE or 0719 012 600. Let us know what you see and we can share that information.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your
At
day.
2 minutes after 7, thank you very much for choosing the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We are broadcasting from Nairobi. We are in Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, and Malindi. We also live stream the show every morning on our digital platforms. Spice FM KE is our Facebook, YouTube, and a Twitter handles. And then, of course, www.spicefm.co.ke is our website. Between 7:30 and 8:30, we'll be having a conversation with the Kenya Revenue Authority senior officer. This is Mr. Caxton Masudi, Deputy Commissioner, Policy and Tax Advisory. Of course, the reason we want him here is so we can talk about this new tax. Patriotism is not just a simple thing. So patriotism has come to what you pay. Ask not what the government... All right, but in this hour, we're talking about building and maintaining confidence and trust in government.
It seems to be that those in government positions are aware that this is necessary to happen. Because, again, just looking at what happened with the cabinet reshuffle day before yesterday, then we saw certain people who were then given certain positions, coming out and be very clear about things that were going to happen, because they had already seen that this had dwindled, and then seeing ways in which they could replace it. We saw the increase by 6 shillings so that farmers could have more in their pockets, because they realized, okay, agriculture is probably going to be the mainstay of this economy at some level, and saying, okay, and the drivers of this, the farmers, what do they need? More power. Where is that power? Most probably in their pockets. So if we can put more money in their pockets, we have more satisfaction, all around. And it was clear that this is what now, to see this actually materialize and manifest, of course, we'll see it soon, whether it will happen or not. But in terms of the euphoria that clearly gripped farmers as of yesterday when this was made, it was clear. It was clear, and people said, aha, finally, now we have something that is going to make me want to work a little harder, make sure that, yes, I say, okay, yes, government, tick. That box has been ticked. They've done something that has affected me directly. And the benefits of that cannot be hidden. It is clear what that does for a country.
Yeah.
Because people can say, yes, my effort then is being
recognized. I can now go back to work.
I can go back to work, and I can do something.
Rededicate my energy into this thing.
But the way the things were going before, I wasn't comfortable with this. I wasn't happy. And the likelihood of me then not electing somebody like this was then very, very high.
Basically, what we're saying is now the government should not just stop there. They know the ministry is speaking at headquarters and saying this is what we are going to do. The government should go out and speak directly to the farmers and say, now, you guys, this is how we are seeking to restructure the tea sector. This is what we want to do with the milk production. This is how we're going to do to ensure that you actually have access to market. So this increase by 6 shillings is a subsidy by the government, but also beyond this, we are going to ensure that this stays like this, because we shall ensure no more, importation of fake powder milk, such kind of things. But you have to speak directly to the people. People must understand what you're doing. I think the biggest issue with the government, like I'm saying, is they feel that talking to you too much is exposing themselves too much. So they don't want to come and spend time with you and explaining why we thought of this and what we are doing about it and getting your feedback. Because also this is coming top down.
The unfortunate thing is that the implications are clean. No matter how you look at it, they're not positive. At one level, you will feel this person feels that perhaps they don't need to explain to you anything in detail.
That's the problem. Yeah.
That you ought, when they've told you, just accept, even if it doesn't make sense. Just accept. Yeah. After all, we are the government and we have told you. Now, that unfortunately represents itself as disregard. Okay. Now, the moment the citizenry feels that they have a leadership or a government that disregards them, you've opened up a can of worms that you really shouldn't open. Because then people who are otherwise compliant and who are ready to be led now become adversarial.
Exactly. And this is the thing. People who are ready to be led, right? That means they have an understanding of what is happening in the country. They are satified with what it is that the government is doing for them. They trust you. And overall, the overarching principle here is that then it becomes then easier for the government to govern. It's much easier to govern a people who are on the same page as you. It is definitely easier to come up with development strategies. It is easier to come up with policies over people who know that what you're doing, they basically said, go do it for us. That's what they've said.
Yeah.
But now you can imagine those who don't have any kind of trust in you whatsoever. We can't ignore the fact that that plays on how then governments perform overall. Absolutely does.
Implementation of very many of government projects goes with a very zero component of communication and public participation. So you'll find very many. Now, the CS for Interior has said very good things. I mean, this is what we intend to do. We intend to ensure that now you shall apply and get within a day. Coming on the back of, they had promised that by January they'll have digitized. Remember, they had said they were going to digitize by January. They were going to digitize the entire registration process. So where are we with that? And so what does it mean now that we have digitized this birth registration process? What does it mean?
It's still not done yet, though, unfortunately.
There you go.
It was supposed to be done the Tuesday after that announcement was made, but unfortunately it has still not happened.
He and CS Mushero had actually said that by January, we will have seen a whole new system in place here. We'll have changed everything. Now, when they go quiet after that, that's where the problem comes in. So if I have not gone to apply for a birth certificate, I don't know what's happened. And the people who have gone to apply for a birth certificate are not going out saying, you know what the government promised, it has done. So what feeling do I get? They haven't done.
They haven't done anything, unfortunately. That's the thing.
Communication is a key component here. They should have gone ahead and said, so this is where we are. This is what we wanted to do. The implementation had 8 weeks. At week number 4, we have arrived here. We are at 80% of where we wanted to be, or we are at 100% of the milestone we wanted to have hit by week 4, or by week 8. This is where we are. When they go quiet, confidence drops. And this is the problem, I think, with the government constantly. How do we get them to understand that communicating with the people is important? How do you get them to understand, for example, when the president says, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to focus on. My focus for the next couple of months is ensuring that we put people in money in people's pockets. And putting money in people's pockets, these are the measures I'm taking. First of all, buy all the rice in these areas. Second, look at banana, buy. Look at milk, ensure that you support the farmers. Look at tea, ensure that you support the farmers. If beyond that, the people in Mwea are not feeling what the government really meant, because nobody has come to start buying their rice 3-4 weeks down the road, problems. Start wondering, this thing Uhuru was just telling us to buy time.
Would that be the thing? I listened to the way in which he spoke, and obviously this is, for me, one of the things that he definitely was trying to do was instill or rekindle this trust that people have in this particular administration or didn't have. Now, for me, that meant that he had an understanding that it was important to get to be on the same side as the people.
Yep.
That he understands that the people actually need to feel involved in this process.
Yep.
Now, those around him, though, or those who were sitting on different dockets at that point, didn't. Just like CT said, for them, it was clear that, okay, we're just going to, what we tell you is what you will do. How involved you are in this process, you really don't matter, you know? But then it was clear to me here, what he's doing is that, he's going to put then people probably who will make sure that what they do shows that they are actually interested in how the people are going to live.
I think the president's expectation was that once he has made this announcement, he has pressed the switch. That the next day we're going to have people in Mwea talking about buying rice.
Right,
We're not
and
talking
people will
about
then
now,
run with it immediately.
Yes, we're going to form a committee to look at how we're going to buy this rice and where we're going to take the rice. No, this work had been done by the team that had been appointed to look at what is the best way to address the plight of rice farmers. So the switch should have been switched on immediately in Mombasa. Following day, see people on the ground. This is how we're going to buy this rice. This is how we expect you to deliver the rice.
Look at what has been reported about the new Minister for Agriculture. He understands it.
Exactly, and ran with it immediately.
He lands and immediately steps are taken. Meaning, these were things which were available. It isn't as though he came with them from the ministry.
Already in motion.
No.
They were already in motion.
Yeah.
But now you see, that's how confidence is built. We have a problem with the milk. There's a glut. Okay, this is what we're doing. Okay, the president has said this. We are buying, but we're also increasing
what you're going to get in.
Exactly. Now, positive.
The gaps come here, City. So yes, you've said you're buying at an extra 6 shillings. Many people are not selling to KCC. KCC is the one that's going to buy this milk at the extra 6 bob. So where KCC is not present on the ground, what happens? At what point am I going to stop selling to this person that I've been selling to the local dairy and start selling to KCC? Or are you saying that the farmers of Githunguri shall now continue supply to their sacco at an extra 6 bob? Is Githunguri being financed to buy at an extra 6 shillings? The details of that. And this is very important for the farmers to know, because I have a cow and I'm milking this cow tomorrow morning or this evening. What happens? Is a 6 bob applicable from today? Is a 6 bob applicable from the end of the month? When does it come? When does it kick in? Does it apply to me, or does it only apply to those people who have a KCC depot near them? These details are important. And this is why we're talking about public participation and explaining it down to the people. Don't just do it at headquarters. Go to the people.
Well, I mean, it's clear that's important. And I think that over the next few days, because I don't think there's any leader, whether they care or not, whether they have exhibited this attitude or not, I don't think there's any leader who is not aware that the people of Kenya have been complaining. Any leader in a different part of the world who have realized that over the last so many number of years, the public interest, or rather public confidence, has waned, has basically, collapsed. There's no leader in Kenya who doesn't get that. And I see from the point of view of those who then were appointed, even with what we saw 2 days ago, that this is going to be one of the top items on the agenda. And we see that. We had a CS who didn't change in any way whatsoever. He didn't change. He's still in the position where he was, then coming up with these announcements as of yesterday. Why? It came at a point whereby it was clear that if you don't get the trust of your people, and we're going very shortly into another time when they must select their leaders, they will select their leaders based on how you made them feel towards the end of administration. Now, if they don't come out feeling on a high, the decisions they make are going to be greatly influenced by the way in which they were feeling. If they're coming out feeling negative, that is how they're going to make the following decisions. If they come out feeling positive, that also is going to influence how they make their decisions. Now, of course, we always know that some extra money in the pocket influences how you feel, right? No, helps you make decisions in a certain way.
Or the tribe of the candidate.
Well, there you go. So if now imagine if the tribe of your candidate, or rather if your candidate is of a certain tribe which you would appreciate or vote for, and this same leader was able to do something for you, like put an extra 6 shillings in your pocket, or make it possible for you to get a document in one day. How much more do you think then the vote would go in your favor as a leader?
How much of all this lip service as well? Governments are known to just make announcements.
Actually, the question, Eric, is how much of it is not lip service?
How much of this is genuine?
That's
all these new announcements. Yes,
to
it seems to be
quantify.
a concerted effort. It's like a script. So it shall start with the president, and then new ministers shall come and say this, and then we shall see, government
no
departments.
student who sat for this exam will not
be left out.
Yes, everyone will have a place. I said, okay, good statement. Then
let's see it practically. Is it practically possible? We are launching a new bursary scheme to address, the needs of all the students who need bursaries.
And it will come through NEMIS. And then NEMIS has failed, and now we are putting the power back into the hands of the head teachers. My goodness.
But this was something we prophesied in this video.
Yes, we prophesied it in
We
December.
argued at great length. Head teachers.
They are the Lord
You
and
imagine
Masters.
that they will not have a say. Okay.
It's 7:15. Good morning. This is the Situation Room.
87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. 96.1 Spice FM, Kisumu. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Yeah, so NEMIS and the education system and putting the trust back into the head teachers, and how the parents feel about that.
Well, interestingly enough, the parents actually felt, I think from a lot of what we've heard and seen, parents actually did feel that they were a little better off when their fate, as it were, laid in the hands of the head teachers, because it was an individual that they could sit and have a conversation with, or certain things that they wanted to be done for their child. Now, with the system, that kind of alienated them from everything, because the system was going to choose how things were going to be done, right? Now, I see a hallelujah, because the NEMIS system just didn't work, and parents said, voila, we get back to the place whereby we can now be in touch with the head teachers. Now, in terms of putting confidence around the country, or putting that confidence back in the people here, unfortunately it didn't work.
I think
because there are a lot of people who feel that because they don't have proximity to the head teacher, then they're going to go at a disadvantage. Absolutely.
The issue with this, NEMIS start-stop is it erodes confidence in that system.
Oh, absolutely.
When you go, the same thing that happened to the IEBC the first time, when you were going to vote and then you were told these things they were not charged, they're not working, so we are resorting to the black book. The entire confidence in the system eroded, vanished.
First thing people said,
because you're thinking,
they're going to rig it now.
They're rigging the system. So when you say that, we're coming, the new students are reporting to schools and they're supposed to be registered using these electronic gadgets or using this system, and then the teachers around the country are telling you this thing is not working, let's resort to manual system, you start thinking, oh my goodness, this thing will never work. So confidence gone. And the explanation of this is what these are the challenges we are encountering with the system. This is what we had hoped to do with the system. It's not working, and this is what we're doing about it. When that explanation is not forthcoming, the next time you tell us to go to NEMIS, we're thinking, but that thing doesn't work.
And
it doesn't matter how many times it works.
You feed information into. Yes, and the information you feed into is what determines what you get out of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It reminds me of a story I once heard about something very simple. It's called banking systems, all right? And someone was explaining to me how, because I don't want to give certain banks an undue advantage over the others by mentioning names, but I will just say this. There are banks who are notorious for having their system hang. You're always being told there's
System
some interruption, maintenance, and you're wondering, hey, Kwani, we just want to spend down. And others, you never hear that story. Now, someone explained to me and told me, actually, when you buy this system, you determine the capacity you want. Capacity is based on the number of clients you have. Now, the smart fellows, this particular smart bank figured, why don't we have something that has the capacity of, say, like the central bank or even bigger? Meaning, if we have, say, 1 million clients, let's have a system for 10 million clients. So the likelihood of this thing crashing is next to zero. Others know they have a client base of 3 million. Then they actually get a system that can take 3 million.
They look at how many people access our services on a daily basis.
Yes.
100,000. So let's do 100,000.
Yes, now, that thing's going to crash. It doesn't matter what you do. It's like the same thing with the pipes for water.
Right.
You have an entire area which previously housed bungalows.
Yeah.
Meaning one house unit in that acre. Flats come up.
High rises.
Yes. And you now have 200 people living in a place where one person and the family lived.
Yep.
Pipe, the same.
Same.
Okay. Electricity supply, same. And then you wonder why you have power outages. Now, it's the same thing. Somebody somewhere did the Kenyan thing. They know what needs to be done. They give the impression they're doing the right thing, but they are not.
They're not. They're cutting corners.
Yes, this is a system. Why should it crash?
Why should it crash? Because it was pre-gigged.
Yes.
in this, so it was done in such a way.
You knew
to
what you wanted
this.
it to do. So even when you bought it, you knew very well what it was supposed to do, and you also have a projection. This year we'll have this number of candidates. Next year we'll have, you have all that information, and when you buy with that information in mind. You're suddenly telling us it has crashed.
Suddenly,
no. It again points to an ill. Now, where mistrust now comes into play, it is possible something may even genuinely malfunction, but we're not going to believe it.
Unfortunately, even now, when we talked about what the CS said yesterday, even now, here in this room, when we talked about what the CS said yesterday, you guys said, until we actually see it.
Let's see it.
Let's see it first.
Let's
Let
hear
one
somebody
person,
who applied for an ID.
One person go and get an ID
got it
in the morning,
day.
in the evening, had it. That
Yes.
is when we will believe that it is possible. But for now,
Fine, it's one more utterance, and it falls in the category of the stadiums. All right.
Yeah.
And the other 128 promises made to the people of the county of Meru. Yes.
Yes.
And others. That's what it falls into now.
And other claims of achievement that you cannot see.
Yes.
850,000
Even with this report,
jobs.
850,000 jobs from CS.
Where?
Yatani yesterday.
And you're saying, okay, where are these
Where are
things?
they?
Where
See,
are
this
the
is the thing.
jobs?
Even when somebody comes, and you would say that this gentleman worth his salt comes and actually makes this statement and says it. I'm sure the gentleman was not sitting, pen to head, let me just make up something.
No, he was given those
He
figures.
was giving the figures. But still,
And
the general...
KNBS has those figures.
Of course.
They've actually gone through a process of...
But
collating those figures and
but
bringing
the initial response is, jobs, where? Which ones, where?
They may very well have actually created those opportunities.
Yes.
Okay?
Or even more.
Yes. But our natural inclination is to disbelieve it.
Of course, because of the fact that over time, there have been promises which were made, which were then not fulfilled. And your present...
And there are many.
There are very many. And your present, of course, is a combination of your historical experience.
And also what's predominantly in the public domain is job losses. Creation
that's
of
what we
jobs
hear
is
of.
not there. We just hear of job losses. These companies
And those
close
ones we
down.
know are real.
We know those ones are real.
Because
we see
we
people
feel
suffering.
them, we see people suffering.
We know people who've lost jobs.
But of course, again, the sensationalist thing, of course, is to always accept the negative. It's natural for us. It's that the negative thing is easier to believe.
With reason.
Of course, with reason.
Look, if you have a situation where you're being told, I'm not even going to discuss the issue of the economy growing, but you're going to be told something like, there are job losses. Now you say, okay, now job losses, what do you relate it to? Poor performance of the company?
Yeah.
Ours is the complete opposite. You have banks declaring some huge amounts that are actually mind-boggling as profits. Next statement, they're laying off people. And you're asking, okay.
How is this happening?
Yes, and just when you thought it was safe to get out of the water, you were told, well, this year, the CEO is going to get a bonus of some 300 million. Hey. Your teeth begins to rattle. And you do the maths and say, okay, they've laid off 200 people, have they?
And they're paying one person.
Yes, this amount of money per year.
Yeah.
Now, that's one. He has a deputy and he has senior managers and directors. They also get bonuses, and I'm sure they've paid some decent, some horrific, should we say, absurd salaries. Okay, now ask yourself, these 200 people who they laid off, if we average their pay at, say, 100,000 each of them, Now, 100,000... that comes to how many millions? 20 million, isn't it? Right? Have I got it wrong or have I got it right?
No, you're spot on.
All right. 20,
Mental math.
20 million. Now, if I do the maths, their salary for a whole year would come to 240 million. Have I gotten this one wrong or have I got it right?
You got it right.
It's still less than what some CEOs get as a bonus. So what on earth are you telling us?
Talking about... Yeah.
You could pay their salary and just reduce that so-called bonus by a few 100,000. They'd still get a few hundred. They'll still get a few 100,000 bonus. Now, when this is a scenario that faces you every year, what are you being told, to believe or to disbelieve?
There you go. Of course, you're being primed to disbelieve.
Yes.
For sure.
Things don't add up. I mean, it doesn't matter how you do the math, it's not adding up.
Yeah.
Now, if this is the what you're bombarded with year in, year out, the government has put itself in a very perilous position because it doesn't matter what it says. Kenyans are, as I said, passive-aggressive. They will not openly show you defiance.
What should it do? I'm just thinking, how else should the government actually build our confidence and trust?
Tell the
At
truth.
what level? And I'm thinking, go down to those chiefs barazas, those meetings that happen, at the local level. Those ones are important.
I think the
Find
truth
ways to
being told is...
Eric, remember the government ethos. In this very same studio, we are once... No, I think when we're having tea and we pose this question, if you didn't have money to pay for something and your child wanted you to pay, what would you tell them? Would you tell them?
You can't tell them I don't have money.
Precisely. And you should. You know why? Let them understand that you do
There will
not
come a time
always
where
have
there
money.
will come a time
Tell
where
them,
you don't have.
Explain, I don't have money, and explain. It doesn't matter how young they are. They will begin to understand in their young minds that there are times when this individual called daddy or mommy doesn't
not
have
have.
money. Yes. And then you can relate it to work. When I go to work, what I'm going to do is
look for more.
Yes, exactly, so that we can do these things. And then you can also say, I now have money, we can
Let
go and
us
pursue
go and
this.
do.
Yes.
But
Now,
that doesn't mean that we should finish it all at this time. This money that we have then gotten, we are going to do this with it, we are going to do this with it, so that we can have a little bit left, so that in the future we can do this, so that we don't get into a place of emergency where now we're not able to handle ourselves.
it's a good conversation to have, but many parents feel you can't tell their children that. Why not?
Don't expose yourself.
If you don't have money, you don't have money.
But at the end of the day, if you don't expose yourself in that way, you get to the situation where you're not able to do anything
You'll
about
get
it. You
exposed
end up
anyway.
with egg on your face, whereby you could have told the story before the situation told it for you.
I remember when we had a guest in this very studio, Jerotich Sei, she said something that really made me chuckle. She went to the school bursar and said, I want to make a payment plan.
Yes.
Now, that is a delightfully lovely parent, because sometimes you look at what you need to pay. You have 5 children. And this salary of yours didn't take account the number of children. It just pays you for the work you
not
do.
all of
Your children, it's you who takes them into account.
That's your problem.
But you know this amount you receive. So you can plan this amount. Why then not go and plan for it by asking for a plan?
There you go.
The institution will not refuse it.
Plan.
You have said you're going to pay. Fine. How do you want to pay? Now, if you understand that this lie has permeated even the individual lives of the citizenry, because when you speak an untruth, you're lying. That's what you may not know. The untruth is a lie.
Truth is a lie.
Yes. Now, if it becomes the norm and then you even baptize it and call it a white lie, it's a lie.
A lie is a lie is a lie,
Yes.
as it were.
So, well, it's just omission. It's a lie.
Tell it many times, it becomes the truth.
Yeah,
It's a lie.
Actually, Eric, you hit the nail on the proverbial head, because there are certain notions that are held in this country as truth, and actually they're not true.
They're not true.
They've just been said so often, like this concept, this word that people say that, the Bible says God helps those who help themselves.
It actually doesn't say
There's
so.
nothing of that sort.
There's no verse that says
There's
that.
nothing. Yes, you might as well said, well, it was said in the book of Zedekiah. The book of what?
Tomorrow we're scheduled to have a pastor in this studio. I don't believe you, CT. I want the pastor to actually tell. I hope I remember to ask this. God helps those who help
Hakuna
themselves.
kitu kama hiyo. Sorry. It is Jomo Kenyatta who said it. And by all, any extraction, extrapolation, that guy was
He's
not
not
God. Just president.
Oh. So
Yes.
who started this lie?
It isn't a lie.
Who do we blame?
It begins as what you call a popular myth. And then with time it gains traction. And people say it happily. God says, it says, okay. Then some say, the Bible says, okay. Which book of the Bible? You know the Bible has many books. Of course it does.
If you read them,
Yes, you will find it.
You'll find
I'm
very
sure.
many places
Now, you
where
don't
God.
read them. That's why you haven't come across it. Yeah.
You'll find very many places where actually God
Help those who help themselves.
those who help themselves. Maybe that's what it is. Not that he says that directly, but it's just the implication.
Oh,
Right.
okay, right.
Those who actually try to help themselves, God came and helped them.
Okay.
Those who are helpless,
Well, interestingly enough, and then we have what we call now this turnover tax that's coming in. And basically, KRA has told us, it's give unto Caesar what is Caesar's. And in the same, it is your duty
It's
to help to
patriotism.
raise the profile of this country. It's patriotism. It's actually a good thing. We're not stepping on you. We're actually
That
helping
isn't
you
patriotism,
out.
it's usury. We are
Come
being
on.
robbed.
Blind.
There's complete, blatantly. So the lie is patriotism. The truth is we're being robbed.
Robbed.
Yes.
Exactly. And now this is the thing. Without sharing the information, I think that's where we go back to at the end of the day. And we talk about now we're trying to instill public trust and confidence
With a
and
lie.
with a lie. And whereas what we should be doing is to instill this or fuel this with the right information, the complete information. So whether you are in dire circumstances, dire straits, or whether you're sitting on top of the rainbow, whichever way, people understand that you're telling them the truth, you share the information with them, and ultimately become easier to govern, and then their trust in you is actually paramount. Because you don't do that, it's tantamount to losing your social capital. And any leader, it doesn't matter where you are, you don't want that to happen. So we always say, well, then what are they supposed to do? Tell the truth, share the information, information, tell it as it is. If we want to instill public trust or
Let me tell you,
rekindle trust,
Ndu, if
that
you're
is the way
told
to go
things
about
as
it.
they are, Ndu, right? You will leave the country. You will feel that things are not working.
Actually, Eric,
Because there's like you said, the natural inclination is to take the negatives. So they'll tell you the truth. The truth is we are trying to do this and the other, but then there's a 5% of some negativity. That's what you're going to focus on.
it is true, but that's why you have communication experts like yourself, Eric, who will say, this is the truth, all right? How do we present it?
How do we present
It's
it
the
to
truth.
people?
We are not going to present anything other than the truth. How do we present
How
it?
do we focus? How
Yes.
do we amplify?
Yes, how do we
The
even
20% that is working.
What do we start with? What do we put in the middle?
It's the same thing as the mother who says, I have this 10 shillings, guys, and there are three children. I will take 3 and I'll provide 1, 2, 3 for each of you. Let's keep 2. Let's do something else with it. And this other 5 we have, let's buy food, let's do this thing, and let's do the other thing. She has told
You're a
you.
good mother.
There you go.
Start again. You have 9.
You have 10 shillings
You have
and 3
10
children.
shillings, 3 children.
The 3 shillings, you take care of something for each of the 3. 1, 2, 3. The 2 shillings we keep aside for a rainy day. The 5 shillings, then you buy what you need to buy that is needed at that point in time before you can go and get another 10 shillings. Follow me so far?
Yep.
Now, those children have confidence in this mother because she has told them as it is. You're not going to expect more because she's told you this is what we have and this is what we are doing with it. And you can see the evidence of such. That's what I'm saying needs to happen in any country.
This is where we are.
This is where we are. This is what we are doing. These are things that we have in mind for us to be able to move forward. The people trust you. No matter how bad it is, they understand, okay, at least we're making strides and we're going forward. That's the way it's supposed to be. Those are the solutions that we should be looking for. And in this
By
case,
the
the
way,
power lies in the hands
and if you
and
get,
the mouths.
If you get people used to you telling them the truth, this addressing the nation, it's supposed to be truth time. Fellow citizens, state of the
let's
nation,
talk.
this way, us as Kenya, this way we are at the moment, all right? Now, if it represents the truth, if I may use a Kenyan term, majorly, okay?
Majorly.
Majorly, it is a Kenyan term. Then people with time get to expect and say, okay, let's wait for the president when he gives us his State of the Nation address. Then he'll tell us exactly where
What
we
is
are.
going
So,
on.
and then thereafter, when the various departments are telling you, look, given this situation, this is what we have planned and this is what we would like to do. And to sort this out, we want to do this. If you listen to the budget speech, it does that. We have this shortfall here, so we've budgeted this to do this and want to cater for this and want to do this. And we normally, people may grumble, they may even complain, but we say, well, at least they've budgeted for the things that we think we need. Up to that point, we're doing okay. Then they go and bastardize the entire
whole
process.
thing. And even that little money that you had for doing this thing, they go and eat it.
Yes.
Completely, plus the seed. That's the problem.
It starts, it disappears.
Yes.
That's the problem.
And then suddenly
So
everything...
how would they tell you the truth? In that case, we ate the money.
No.
What would they tell you?
No.
Somebody ate the money.
No.
We're fighting corruption. That's how we actually tell you this truth.
Actually, if you actually spoke the truth and followed it with action, because remember, words are a precursor to some action. You may not know this, but you are eliciting action by actually uttering words. I'll be talking about this later when we talk about utterances. But the truth of the matter is, if you actually speak the truth to the citizenry, they may not like what you're saying at all, or even but they will say, these people actually tell us the truth. So with the time, they'll say, okay. So anytime you say, look, this is what we want to do, they'll rally behind you, even as they are grumbling, but they say,
okay, at least we know this is where we are.
Yeah, but these guys tell us the truth. We don't like what they say, but they'll rally behind you.
It may be a bit difficult for us in the interim, but
We won't like it
Benefit
at
of the
all.
doubt.
We'll even insult you, but we know
we
you've
know
told
it's
us the truth.
And this is something that actually can be done. We talk about looking for solutions. This is a solution. This is something that can be done, and it should be embraced. Otherwise, again, loss of social capital, essentially crumbling of governments.
You may see what the president said the other day and what the actions that he has taken just going to waste in terms of public confidence.
If
If you don't maintain it,
if
if you
it's
don't
not
maintain
maintained.
this constant communication and updates, we said we were going to do this. This is where we are. Even like talking about the payment to of the pending bills, telling us about 80%. Let's not hear it from the president constantly by asking him. Let's hear it from the other officers on the ground. Let's see the county officers saying.
Let's
we
hear the
have
vendors who are owed
vendors
money coming out
to
and
say,
saying,
I
actually,
received money.
I
I've been paid.
Yes.
Indeed.
I was owed this, I have been paid, and things are better.
25 minutes to 8 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Traffic.
Unfortunately, an accident at the Mombasa Road General Motors bus stop this morning, and someone has been knocked down. So there's traffic right around there as that is trying to be sorted out. Unfortunately, hopefully it's not a fatal one, but that's what we have in terms of the situation. Crazy traffic on Limuru Road from Village Market all the way down past the Aga Khan Hospital getting into the city centre. That is an absolute mess. Thika Road headed to town. Traffic starts from Garden City. It's moving extremely slowly. Langata Road close to Langata Hospital, no, it's not moving at all. Of course, Kasarani, we do have that problem that we see. Eastern Bypass through Utawala Road, that is an option that you can use this morning. Of course, talking about solutions where we can get where we're going easier. Jogo Road, there's traffic a little bit round about the city stadium roundabout, but then getting into town is probably the easiest way that you can use today. So you might want to use that because it's not so bad right now. Let you know what other parts look like, or if we run into a tough situation, we'll let you know. Spice FM KE 0719012600. Let us know what you see that we can let other people see as well.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The Situation Room is Kenya's biggest conversation. We broadcast from Nairobi, 94.4. We're in Mombasa, 87.9. If you're listening to us in Kisumu, you're on 102.5. Nakuru and the environs, 96.0. And this signal actually goes pretty far and wide. It also in Nakuru, in Naivasha, all the way to Narok, in some parts of Narok, and it goes quite far. 90.9 in Nyeri, 96.7 in Eldoret, 97.7 in Malindi. Live streaming the show as we always do every morning. Spice FM KE Facebook. Spice FM KE is our YouTube channel. At Spice FM KE, we are live streaming on Twitter as well. And our hashtag is the Situation Room. Log on to our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. In the studio this morning, in the Situation Room, we have Nduoko, CT Muga. My name is Eric Latif. We'll soon be joined on the hot seat by the Deputy Commissioner of the Kenya Revenue Authority in charge of policy and tax advisory. We'll be talking about the new tax. This new tax. When the President was asked about it the other day when he was speaking in Mombasa, and he was told, so you have heeded to the calls and the cries of the people when it comes to NHIF. Why don't you do the same thing about the new tax called the turnover tax that's targeting the small taxpayers? He said, you know what? It's a duty and also it's a patriotic responsibility of every citizen to pay tax. So this is one way of ensuring that we widen our tax bracket and we make small traders pay tax by submitting 3% of their annual turnover every month to KRA. Now, KRA has also been going on a blitz explaining who is this small trader. Small trader is a company that is not that makes less than 5 million shillings a year. A small trader is a company that is not registered for VAT. A small trader is a company that is not registered as a limited liability company. Those are small traders. We're talking about salons, we're talking about mama mboga, we're talking about hawkers, we're talking about people who run small retail shops, kiosks. Those are people who are supposed to be paying this 3% tax every month. Now, of course, questions arise. How do I do this? You go through the iTax system. So you log on to the internet, go to iTax, you register yourself for this tax, then you start submitting the tax. This is where the questions start emerging for people. How am I going to do this? And how often am I going to do this? Yeah, so it becomes a very tricky issue here.
Well, of course, the questions have come up in terms of then why at this time, and of course, is there a race to the finish line, as it were, in terms of the shillings that need to be collected, and then who sits in the place in terms of victims when it comes to how much more they have to pay out of pocket. Of course, those questions have been raised, and quite significantly so by those who would bear the brunt of all of this, and of course, cannot be ignored.
They cannot, and they shouldn't be ignored. I mean, this is something that people talk about all the time, that, people require to start paying tax and all. And we are joined now in the studio by Caxton Masudi. He is the Deputy Commissioner for KRA in charge of policy and tax advisory. Caxton, good morning.
Good morning.
Asante sana for coming.
Good morning.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. We are talking about something that is in everybody's, view and sphere. People knew that from the 1st of January this year, KRA started implementing and rolling out this new tax, the turnover tax. This is a time when people are losing jobs. This is a time when people don't have money in their pockets. By the admission of the president himself, people don't have money in their pockets. People are struggling to start small businesses so that they can survive and be able to feed their families and live a decent life. Then KRA, you come in and implement this. Everybody's question was, really? What is KRA thinking? So, what is KRA thinking, Caxton?
First and foremost, you need to appreciate that KRA implements laws passed by Parliament. So this tax is not a KRA tax. This is a tax that has been introduced by Parliament for Kenyans to contribute to national development. As you may appreciate, that it is very critical that this economy takes off. And for it to take off, it requires investments. And as it were, investments by government comes from taxes and resources given to the government by Kenyans or citizens or residents of Kenya. So this is probably the right time for Kenyans to pick up and contribute taxes, especially the sections of the Kenyan community that have not been contributing to government funding.
Why were they not contributing previously? Why? Because we keep hearing that this informal sector, as it were, is the largest driver already of the Kenyan economy. So there's money coming in from this sector that is being ejected into the economy. Either way, with or without tax, that has been happening. So why then were they not contributing before into the kitty? Why was that not happening before?
It is largely because of the nature of this sector of our economy. Because what happens is that these are small business people who are earning less than 5 million in a year. And the most critical thing is that for this sector to contribute, they have always appealed to government to give them a tax that is convenient. Because you need to appreciate that for you to file the normal income taxes, you need to keep records, you need to have services of auditors, services of accountants, so that they can help you prepare the books and file the returns.
Yep.
Now, this group, this sector of our economy have always been requesting that since they do not have the capacity to, get this kind of services and pay for them. They needed a convenient tax that is simple, that can be paid on the go, and this is why the turnover tax was introduced.
So they asked for it. Is that what we're saying? The people
Yes.
asked for this.
Every time, we have asked them to pay taxes, they have been saying it is complicated. Yes, because they say we want to pay, but we don't know how to prepare the books of accounts. We want to pay. We don't know who should advise us. And in any case, even if they wanted to get services of accountants and auditors, probably there would be enough of them to help them. Please note that this is about 2.4 million residents that fall under this category.
Yeah. So assuming that you've responded to their request and said, we understand your lack of capacity, how has this 3% tax addressed that in terms of how they're supposed to pay and to become compliant?
Now, turnover tax is a simple tax. All you need to know is the total sales that you've had in a period. Because if your total sales is 100,000, for example, you only need to pay 3,000. You don't need any accounting. You don't need any auditor. You don't need any other service.
I don't need any proof. Because this is where KRA guys are going to come and tell me, how do we know?
Yeah,
No,
and then
but
it
Eric,
becomes...
when you sell something, if you talk about sales, there's something called a receipt.
No, there isn't. When you
Hold
go
it.
to Mamamboga,
Hold it.
There's no receipting.
Hold it. There is a receipt. It's whether they provide it,
or not.
yes. But how do they, for instance, account for what they have, what they sell, what they make? There has to be a process that they follow. They also do their own accounting.
Obviously.
Yes. Now, why am I saying this? Remember, there was this discussion about, say, matatus, all right? And the issue of, do matatus actually have receipts? They do. If you ask for a receipt, they will give you a receipt. All I'm saying is that there's an accounting process that takes place. You may not ask for it, but it does. And they themselves cannot conduct that business unless they have some process by which they account for what they do.
Of course, they have some basic bookkeeping. I'm just thinking about, somebody who sells mbogas, the mama mboga. They have basic bookkeeping. They know this is how much I bought in the morning. This is how much I've sold in the evening. They know that, right? Some of them will write it down. Others will keep it in their head, right?
Sure.
Now, KRA will come and say, give me 3% of what you've sold. If I say that I sold 100 shillings today, and yet I sold 1,000 shillings, there comes the conflict between me and KRA.
No, let's ask KRA.
So how is
you-
KRA
how they
going
would
to
go
do
about
this?
it.
How do you
Yes.
ascertain?
First, I want to say this, that Kenyans pay taxes without serious prodding. And probably just for statistics purposes, over 90% of all the revenue collected by Kenya Revenue Authority is voluntary assessment. People go into the system, declare their taxes, and pay.
In some cases, they're afraid that there'll be punitive measures if they don't.
Now, we also believe that for this category, because there are also Kenyans like those that have been paying. Now that they have been enabled to pay, we expect over 90% of all the business people in this category to pay their taxes without prodding. However, we have put into place support services so that these people understand their responsibilities, their obligations, and also appreciate how they will go about paying their taxes. And we believe that with this, we will have a very small percentage of those who may not comply.
Did you hear the hue and cry? It must have fallen on KRA ears after this announcement was made. Did you hear the sentiment that came from the same people in the informal sector about the introduction of this tax?
Yes, we of course have had concerns raised in this sector, but I think they are unfounded. We have been meeting representatives from this sector. They also have associations.
Yep.
We've been meeting their representatives, and we've been discussing with them how they would want us to implement this tax. And they have given us their feedback. One, they say they do not want to leave their businesses to come and pay taxes.
Yep.
They want to pay their taxes wherever they are at the time that is convenient to them. And we as KRA have responded and have now are in the process of rolling out a mobile application that will enable Kenyans in this sector to pay their taxes using mobile payment platforms.
So it's going to be simplified.
Very simplified.
But this is not going to happen this month, because this month's returns should be paid by Monday, the 20th, right?
No. The tax became effective on 1st of January.
So it's for the next one.
So it is for the next month. It
So
will become effective by the 20th of February.
This information that you are now giving us, would you say that this is information that has been in the public domain?
Well, we have been trying to reach out, just like we are reaching out now.
So
If you have seen,
We saw an advert in the paper
Yes.
yesterday, Caxton. Let's just get serious on this. And the advert in the paper yesterday did not mention anything about mobile phones. It was saying you need to log on to iTax. And when you log on to iTax, you register yourself for this tax, and then you shall now be declaring on that iTax platform. Now, when you talk about traders telling you, really, we don't want to have a long and tedious process, that right there is a long
it's a long and tedious process.
Because you're telling Mama Mboga, log on to iTax. What is iTax? First of all, get onto the internet, log on to iTax, register yourself, and then every month go and file these returns, and then you shall be submitting that. That advert, as late as yesterday, did not have the new information you're saying, unless this is breaking news.
Don't worry.
Wow, they're worried.
I want to appeal to our taxpayers that and inform them that this is really coming. I mean, the app is under testing. The USSD is also under testing, and it shall be released before the end of the month.
So the question that I'll ask you when we come out of this quite short break is, you knew that you were going to be implementing this tax as late as when the president signed the law last year in October. And even before that, you had a full year where you were preparing, and I'm sure the National Treasury is the one that was campaigning to have this TOT reintroduced. Yet you had not worked on any mobile platform until now. In January is when you're working on a mobile platform, and it will not be ready. And I can guarantee you it will not be ready, and people made aware of how this thing works by the 20th of February. Surely, what does this say about KRA's seriousness in rolling out this tax? This is the situation. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. It's 8 minutes to 8 o'clock. We have in the studio Caxton Masudi. He's a KRA Deputy Commissioner in charge of Policy and Tax Advisory. We're discussing the new turnover tax. Good morning.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Caxton Masudi, Deputy Commissioner for Policy and Tax Advisory at the Kenya Revenue Authority. Tell us, how long did KRA have to prepare itself to roll out this turnover tax?
First, I think I need to respond to the comments that you made earlier. We cannot anticipate law. We have to wait until Parliament tells us what is chargeable to tax and how it shall be collected. Now, the administrative part is our responsibility. So when Parliament passed this law, we started off planning on how to go about collecting it. And we have put in place a lot of measures to ensure that this tax comes in. From stakeholder engagements, we have met the people that will be affected by this tax. We have met government institutions that will assist in collection of this tax, including representatives of county governments. We have been working on the systems, and we wouldn't have deployed the iTax module that will enable us collect these taxes if we have not been preparing. And now, just as an announcement, is that the mobile app is also coming.
Also coming.
Yes.
So first of all, I'd like to respond to that because you are responding. So right of reply, you may not anticipate tax, but this was not an initiative of Parliament. This was an initiative of the government. The government here being the National Treasury. So the National Treasury had been working on reintroducing turnover tax. It knew this. This matter, when it went to Parliament as a peace bill for legislation, it was of course supported by the National Treasury. KRA, that falls under the National Treasury, must have been aware that turnover tax. You're the head of tax advisory. You cannot tell me, Caxton, this morning that you did not know about this tax until you heard about it from the media, that the president has signed a new law. You must have known about this.
That's not what he said.
What is he saying, City?
At least that's not what I heard. You see, he may have known about it, but there's a process that Parliament must go through
Yep.
And before that is concluded, there's very little they as KRA can actually do.
They cannot start preparing? They can.
Well, they can prepare, but remember, what are you preparing for? These things have details attached to them. Why am I talking as though I work for KRA?
I don't know. I'm really wondering, Sisi, what's happening here.
You're talking because you are a Kenyan and you appreciate
Okay.
what KRA does.
There's a rider for UCT. But in all of this, how does all of this play against what we've seen previously, that there is a mandate for KRA to collect in terms of funds by a certain time? I mean, we're looking at huge numbers that you need to collect. It seems that there's then all this is fought with much vigor. It seemed to be welcome because then it gives you, an added advantage then in the percentages that you must collect.
Yes. We're targeting 2.4 million Kenyans to contribute to the national development. And we are expecting in the first 6 months, because, the fiscal year ends in June 30th.
So where you have targets.
Yes, we have targets. And we're expecting about 2 billion shillings from this.
In the first 6 months?
Yes.
And then when or if this should not happen, what happens? Because a lot of times we've seen when there have been pronouncements of punitive measures to be taken on people who don't pay tax, this and this or the other thing will be done. Are we going to see a rollout of that as well?
First and foremost, I don't think that that should be our focus. Our focus would be to assist everyone who is willing to pay their taxes.
So it's about willingness.
Yes.
It's not. So this tax is not being forced.
No country has successfully collected taxes by forcing people. When you go to every country that have made significant contribution and have developed, you realize that their taxpayers pay taxes voluntarily. And so is in Kenya. I mean, if over 90% of our taxes are paid voluntarily, we expect that even this tax will be paid voluntarily.
But if it's not, you will be fined.
There are measures and provisions in law to enforce against people who don't pay taxes. But those measures are used only for the few that are not compliant. But even then, we would want to see a situation whereby we will not be using those measures in this case.
I hear you saying that KRA then is your friendly tax collecting government agency. That's what I hear you saying. How then do you relate this with the perception that many people have of the opposite?
I don't know where this perception is coming from, really.
But it's true, it's there, right?
It might be historical.
It's from the treatment, yes.
But I think if you have been following KRA, if you have been following the business community, they have actually been posting in report after report that payment of taxes in Kenya is becoming more convenient and it is improving the ease of doing business. So you may probably be interested in getting the World Bank indices of doing business, the ease of doing business.
Globally,
and you see
that
the taxpayers are appreciating.
Of course, they're going to say.
It'll have that, at a global level, it'll look like that. But then when people on the ground are saying, now, look, how KRA treats people, how KRA approaches businesses and finds out whether you've been complying with paying tax. And then you find, because of lack of awareness, for many cases, the feedback is because of lack of awareness of what I'm supposed to pay, when I'm supposed to remit. I registered a company. I have not operated this company, but I registered for VAT. I was supposed to have been filing VAT returns every 20th. Lack of information, lack of awareness. When the officers from KRA come and tell you, here you have a company you should have been remitting, you owe us 120,000 shillings, the language is not that conducive. Apologies for that. It's actually because we've got into 8 o'clock. Let's first take a look at what's happening on the roads, and then we continue with the conversation. And of course, the conversation is with Caxton Masudi, who is the Deputy Commissioner, Policy and Tax Advisory at the Kenya Revenue Authority. It's 8 o'clock.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Traffic.
Definitely trying to take a look at what's happening on our roads this morning. We definitely have the traffic situation on Langata Road this morning. It is not as smooth as we had anticipated it to be. It's bumper to bumper all the way down to the T-Mall roundabout. Of course, that leads us on to Wayaki Way and further down to Bagathi Way roundabout to the City Mortuary roundabout. That is not moving in the way we'd like it to. Of course, we have the situation that's spilling on over to Thika Road, whereby matatus around the Mwiki area are on strike and residents are having to walk. Thika Road from Utali to Muthaiga, it's a parking lot, unfortunately. Nothing is moving. Of course, we are right in the middle of traffic hour. Accident at Mtindwa near the Caltex flyover this morning. Please use a service lane if you're coming from Mbakasi, because if you use the other road, you're going to go right into the traffic, or rather into the accident situation. All right, coming off Wayaki Way is a little bit better now as what we had seen earlier, and to get into the CBD, not so bad. All right, let's see what it looks like in a short while, but for now, this is where we are. Mombasa Road also getting us to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout is going to take some time, and it will stave off in a short while. Spice FM KE on Twitter, 0719 012 600. Call us. Let's get people moving.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching
The
up.
conversation continues. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, Eric Latif, Nduoko, and Caxton Masudi, who is a Deputy Commissioner in charge of Policy and Tax Advisory at the Kenya Revenue Authority. We're discussing turnover tax and basically just taxation and revenue collection by the government. I was at the point of making the point that there are people who, you may say they are few, but there are those actually that complain that KRA is a draconian in the way it approaches people, in how it handles people who are, well, they're willing to pay tax, but for one reason or the other, they have not complied. There is arrests, there is denial of tax compliance certificate or withdrawal of PIN. Somebody has has a company that's operating and they're running a business,
freezing your account,
freezing of accounts. These things, why must KRA go into such great lengths for even what we may call a first-time offender?
First, I won't say that that is not our emphasis. Our emphasis is in facilitating taxpayers. And you need to appreciate that we have put into place a network. We have put into place tax service centers, offices all over the country. We are at Huduma centers, just to ensure that everybody who needs information on how to pay their taxes, their tax obligations, are facilitated. Now, for those who have challenges, we have taken measures to relieve them of the challenges that they may be having. Because some of the problems that Kenyans have been having is that they have gone into the system and committed to pay taxes for which they are not supposed to be paying. You know, mistakes. Like you log into the system and say you want to pay VAT,
Income tax.
You want to pay income tax, excise, and so on. You don't have an excise factory. Now, the system anticipates that when you log into the system and give yourself an obligation, you are supposed then to respond to the requirements of that obligation. Like for every month, it expects a return. But what we've been doing is that we have actually been relieving and assisting those people come out of those kind of challenges. And it's available. We've done adverts in the media telling them, please come forward. Number two is that where persons are not able to meet their tax obligations, especially where they had errors in computing their taxes and discovered later that they have a big amount of arrears, KRA has been offering them a payment plan. They can pay these taxes over a period, 6 months, 3 months, 12 months. This is available to people who have challenges. We know that in some cases, people don't pay taxes not because they don't want to pay, but because probably they omitted an interpretation of the law here and there.
Yeah.
And this is given. So there are those who come voluntarily and say, I made a mistake, I ought to have paid 1 million, I paid 200,000. We tell them, okay, fine, go ahead and pay. Then they say, no, I can't pay 800,000 at once. Can you give me 2 months? And they are given. So this is how we have been facilitating taxpayers to pay their taxes. Number two, every company that is registered in this country and goes into business is given a PIN in real time.
Yeah.
You get two things at the same time. You get certificate of registration and you also get a PIN. And you get invited to KRA premises in the succeeding month for you to be sensitized on obligations of paying taxes, so that you do not have the disadvantage of not understanding your obligations and requirements. And they will tell you this. They receive invites from KRA. Please come, we tell you. And by the way, if you open a business and you do not start transacting immediately, right? Because it is possible that you open a business, you you register a company, and then you are not able to start business immediately.
Yep.
You don't have to pay taxes. All you need to do is to come to KRA and make an application for you to be put on dormancy until such a time when you are ready to do business. And these are some of the people who have been having problems.
Of course.
Because they register companies, they register for PIN, they give themselves obligations, and they just go.
Then they don't start the business.
They don't start the business.
And a year later, there are penalties and arrears. Now, you say that when somebody registers a company, they get a PIN and they're immediately invited. So do you have like a percentage of the number of people whom you issue PINs to, and they follow up with coming for those trainings in the subsequent months? Like, do you know, we've invited 50,000 people who are new applicants, and only 10,000 came, or 50,000 came, or 1,000 came?
I may not have the statistics here, but the turnout is usually very good. The turnout
Estimation,
is usually very good.
Over 50%, 90%?
Over 90%.
Over 90% of people who actually have registered new companies now are aware of their tax obligations.
Yes.
Immediately.
Yes.
And those that had registered before and they still have dormant companies?
We reach out to them. We have a very elaborate arrangement that looks at people who have registered and they are not responsive. Means they are not filing returns or they are not paying taxes. And through our tax service offices, we reach out to them because we want to ask them, where are you? What happened to you? Can we help you if you have a problem to pay your taxes? Okay? And we do that. They will tell you that KRA officers call them and, we send them SMSs, we send them emails.
They'll say that, and then they tell you when a KRA officer called them, the first thing that they felt was, oh my goodness, what have I done
What
now?
have I done?
Actually,
And the kind of engagement that you've had with the KRA officer is towards the very end is when this person becomes amiable and amicable. But at the very beginning, it is not an amicable conversation that you're having.
When a commissioner, when you explain it, it's so pleasant. It's like a lullaby.
Honestly, it sounds like
like
KRA
a
is your
different
friendly
organization.
agency.
Yes, and it runs
sounds
contrary,
so great.
Not to my own experience, but the things I hear don't quite align themselves to what you're saying. So the question I'm asking is this: the officers who implement these policies, do they understand these things like you do, and do they actually strive to achieve these goals that KRA has in the same manner, using the same platform that you're describing?
Yes, they should be as good as I am.
There's the word, though. They should be. But in reality...
I believe they are. They are.
Feedback from the ground, because what you're giving is actually that
is different.
feedback.
Yes,
and it's different. If you go even into social media platforms and you find people talking about their relationship with KRA, it will be completely different from what you're saying. There
Okay,
are many who
lem-
will say, they've had very, very acrimonious engagements with KRA officers. Those that have taken themselves to KRA officers because they received a call, come because we are seeing in the system there's some arrears that you have. Go to the system, go to KRA offices, and they spend 2 days trying to sort out a problem because they've been sent from one officer to another officer, and the officers are just looking at them like, you're bothering me. That kind of engagement, that kind of
But the one which
perception.
I've heard more often is where there's an issue of arrears from the KRA end, but the person who is supposed to be in arrears is actually not consulted. What they receive is a letter informing them that their account has been frozen because of these arrears. Yes. So now they have to try and prove that actually this money was paid through an agent, namely a bank, and maybe it's the bank who didn't perhaps remit. The arrears may be real. So my query is, shouldn't KRA take the time to actually investigate why this arrear actually present themselves as they are before taking the punitive action, which I believe is prescribed for somebody who hasn't paid?
Now, I think I will better take you through the process. First, I want to say that do not ever run away from a KRA officer.
When the guy is chasing you,
But
when
I'm
you're
sure
being
they're
chased,
Do not ever
bit
run away
scary.
from a KRA officer. When you see them coming around, they are coming to offer you a solution to your problem. They are coming to give you alternatives to you settling your tax arrears or even understanding your taxes. We would like to walk around and say, yes, you are welcome. And the question we want to always ask is, how can we help you sort out your problem? Now, for enforcement to kick in, it takes a very long time, takes a lot of engagements. First, even before we issue an assessment where we think taxes have not been paid, we don't give you an assessment. We give you a notice to issue an assessment. Means we tell you, we got this information about your business and it does not tally with your declarations. And therefore, can you tell us why? Even before we issue the assessment. So when you give an explanation or you consent that, yes, that information was missed in your return, you first have the option of amending the return yourself and making the right declaration. If you don't, we will issue an assessment. Okay? Now, when we issue an assessment, we give you 30 days to respond. And if you don't respond, we confirm.
The assessment.
Yes, the assessment. And then you again have 30 days to object. An objection means you come back to KRA and say, yes, I have received this assessment. I don't think it is right.
I still disagree.
This is my evidence. I don't agree with this. This is my evidence. And we have to review it. And we have an independent office. In fact, you don't go and face the same person who issued the assessment. You go and face an independent officer, separate from the one who issued you an assessment, so that your treatment is fair.
Okay. Caxton, why is this sounding so very good on paper and different from what City is saying? He has heard of this.
No, I actually know. This is not I have heard. I actually know.
Even something as simple, then if it's a friendly, if it's a relationship whereby we're saying that, okay, you have this problem, come, let's sit, then why do we have things like the freezing of accounts? Something like that. Just that alone. Why do we have the freezing of accounts? Because what that does then is it disables businesses. People then are not able to run. Even while we're having the conversation, I'm still handcuffed. I'm handcuffed and we're having a conversation and I've been condemned. Punitive measures have been taken against me. I cannot operate, but we're still saying we're having a conversation and we're trying to make it easier for you. Do you not see that it's two different worlds that are at play here?
Now,
based on what you're saying and what the reality is for very many people.
In conclusion of my, submission, you need to appreciate that it is only in the extreme cases of people who probably don't respond, people who refuse to comply, that such kind of action is taken. And there are not so many. There are actually very few. Probably it's only the concern is probably they are very loud also. And maybe people, that kind of action is, publicized much more widely than all the good things that KRA is doing. But I know it's quite painful for those that are affected, but you are also appreciate that as a tax authority, where all measures have been put in place and actions taken to facilitate you to pay taxes have been made, and yet you do not respond. I mean, the law then has enabled the tax authority to take those actions, to recover tax.
Can I ask the next question? Is there a division within KRA where if what we clearly now see is an anomaly happens, one can actually directly complain to and say, look, your rules say this, but this is what's happening to me.
This is what I got.
This is what's happening. This is what I'm experiencing even right now, and here's the evidence of what I'm experiencing.
Oh, that happens in all our processes. During the notice of assessment, after the assessment, even when that kind of action has been taken against you, you still have an opportunity to use our alternative dispute resolution mechanism, where there's an independent person, you walk there and say, I want this matter to be heard in a very informal way, because an ADR process, the alternative dispute, is not like a court of law. I mean, any person can walk in there. You don't probably even require representation. You simply walk in there and say, this is my evidence. I think this action taken by your officers is not in tandem with the law, and it will be reviewed.
Over what period of time?
And I want to, it is reviewed within a maximum of 90 days.
And which means that if you had frozen my account
won't
remains
operate
frozen
for
for 90 days.
Your company is paralyzed for 90 days.
And now, when you take that kind of action and goodwill is detected, usually we do not wait for the matter to be resolved. The account can actually be unfrozen because you have engaged positively.
So pending determination,
Yes,
you can be allowed to continue
yes.
operating.
And that happens all the time.
There are those that have gone to KRA offices, still looking at feedback from social media platforms, those that have gone to KRA offices and said, I am objecting to what you're talking about. And then the first thing the officer says is, this is what I have in the system as arrears. Pay first, then tuonge. This happens all the time. Is that a policy? Is that what you're supposed to do? Is the officer actually now just being draconian? I just keep using that word.
That is not provided for in law, and I don't think our officers do that. What
They actually
happens?
do.
What
This
happens is
This is the
Maybe
truth.
this is a point of information for you as well,
Yes,
Caxton, because it happens.
we appreciate this feedback really, and we will of course be checking again and again to see that there is compliance with policies and so on. But the most, if you walk into every KRA premise, yes, when the officer feels that the evidences you are providing are not helping in changing your tax position, because that also happens.
Yeah.
And largely because probably you don't understand the law, you don't know how tax is computed, you simply thought because you made this money, this would be probably, there's no tax. And then now the officer appreciates the law and is guiding you. You know, there will be reach a point when the officer will basically tell you that this is what the law says and this is how you want to comply. You have to comply. And the officer then is mandated to take the next step to communicate to you the position as interpreted in accordance with the law. Sometimes you may not still agree with the officer's position. And that's why the dispute resolution mechanisms then kick in. Because the officer has to make a decision.
Yeah.
And they have to make a decision in accordance with the law.
With the law. So this is the point when the officer is basically saying, well, Sasa, you've talked. In conclusion,
Pay.
Pay, and then we talk.
If you want us to talk further, pay.
I think we'd be interested to know what supersedes the other. The collection, because obviously, you are the collection arm of the government when you look at that in terms of, if we're going to look at the nitty-gritty. What overrides the other? The protection of the people in terms of their interests in doing business or, contributing to the national kitty, or the mandate that you have been given to collect?
We have a responsibility as KRA. Every institution of government is given its mandate. And ours is very simple. Mobilize revenue to government through taxes. And we just have to execute it the way Parliament and government directs us to do.
So you don't have a choice in this case then when it comes to some of these collections and what Eric has constantly called draconian ways of doing things. You don't have a choice when it comes to this.
We do not have a choice where the law has specifically instructed us on what to do. But in terms of ensuring that the persons who pay taxes in this country appreciate tax, we have put in place administrative measures just to make sure that, yes, it is an obligation.
Yeah.
It is a requirement of the law. You must pay tax. There is no ignorance in law. You know, you appreciate all these things. But even though that's how law is interpreted, we have gone out of our way to put into place mechanisms that ensures that there is comfort in payment of taxes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You sit at a very precarious position here, Caxton, because as KRA, your mandate, as per law, is to collect taxes. As citizens, our mandate is to pay taxes, and then there's a government that goes to use the taxes. Now, when people feel that what they are paying for, they're not getting value for it. So, for example, we've seen day 4 of demonstrations in Mwiki. People are complaining about roads that haven't, been addressed for so long. They are day 4 of demonstrations. If the people of Mwiki woke up today and decided, you know what, we don't see where our taxes are going, we are not going to pay, what do you do?
Would you fault them?
I think that is supposed not to be directed to the tax authority.
You're the one who's collecting.
That is supposed to be directed to the people who are supposed to implement those kind of programs. You please appreciate that care is on the other side, this other side. And you,
I started with that. I started with saying that you sit in that position because
Yes.
you're the one who's going to come to me to ask for my tax. And I'll tell you, I am not giving you a shilling, Caxton. Look at that road. What do you do?
But you need to appreciate one thing, that there are mechanisms and ways of addressing different issues. You do not break one law to have your voice heard. I think those people have representatives, they have MCAs, they have parliamentarians, they have local administrations. They can always be heard in a different way. Failing to pay to pay taxes imposed under legal obligation would again complicate things for you.
Essentially, you're saying they'll be breaking the law, and that's they've brought in a new dimension and a new discussion.
Yes, I believe that they have other ways of addressing the challenges that they are facing.
Let me ask the question that I've been actually wanting to ask. I'm listening to you, and everything you say makes sense. Why is it then that prior to your coming here, we didn't understand all these things? Does KRA actually have a good policy of ensuring that they communicate these things? Because as you say them, they're really clear, straightforward. And because we're in the media, we tend to be fairly well informed. And some of this information we actually didn't have.
Well, I think I will take that as feedback to our tax education team.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, let's talk actually about that tax education team, because we've discussed this even on this show many times before. One of the things that people tell you about is, I'm willing to pay my taxes, but I am not aware. I don't have the information. You say that the tax education, you conduct clinics at KRA headquarters, at KRA offices. What other way have you thought of, using to reach out to people to create more awareness? You're telling me to close my business so that I can come to KRA, so that I can understand how KRA works. You need to come to me so that you can understand how I work. How do you strike that balance?
We are here. We are talking to the public, right? and I'm happy that your listeners are appreciating, how KRA can facilitate them to pay taxes. We have even had plans to start tax education in schools. And we are going right there so that as they come of age, they appreciate that they have an obligation for them to contribute to national development. We, of course, are exploring many ways of reaching out. We are in social media. KRA is in social media.
Yeah.
Probably what we are saying here is also being
tweeted. You have an active social media account, yes.
Yes, that is to reach out to the youth. we try all manner of ways to reach out to our taxpayers.
Right. One thing that I think is extremely important is that I hear you on what you've said. However, the image out there of what people are saying is not the very best, and I think that needs to be taken into consideration. What would you do to kind of clean that up? Because you've put it out as the neighborhood hand holding tax collector, and that has been very clear. But what people have in their mental image of KRA is different, between like night and day. So in order to get this voluntary or continuous voluntary giving of or paying of taxes, the image definitely needs to be cleaned up. The image that people perceive. How would you do that?
I think first and foremost is to ensure that we live up to what we call the taxpayers' charter. We have committed to provide services within specific time frames. You ask for TCC, we say it is 2 days. You ask for something else, we say it is 1 week. So this is our agreement that we have offered as a standard for us to serve the public. Number two is what we are doing is to ensure that people have information, adequate information for them to pay their taxes. So basically, two major areas: service quality and information will help us come out of it. And we are on it. And we are tracking all the feedback, all the indicators from the public to ensure that we achieve these objectives.
Right.
And much more important is we are continuously engaging representative institutions of taxpayers, Kenya Association of Manufacturers, KEPSA, small traders associations, everyone that gives us feedback, because we engage them and we ask them, what do you want to change?
Right.
How do you want us to serve you? How best would you feel comfortable being served?
Right.
And that feedback is continuously being used to improve our processes and our systems. Yes.
How do you deal with corruption within KRA? It's obviously something that has come up as well. How are you dealing with that?
Yes. For quite some time, probably KRA can pride itself for having its own mechanism for addressing integrity issues among the staff. And we have our full-fledged department whose responsibility is always to ensure that we do not breach the law. We officers do not engage in, integrity issues. And we have always been isolating persons that do not meet our standards of service. People have integrity issues. And some of them have ended up in court. Others have lost their jobs. And we also have a mechanism to continuously monitor the performance.
How many have ended up in jail?
Jail.
Conviction, as you may appreciate, is not a process of the prosecutor. Conviction is a process of the other side. There's somebody who sits on the other side. And we must appreciate the judiciary processes as well. I mean, you present a suspect to court, the court determines when the case will be heard and when it will be concluded. So, yes, there have been convictions in the past, but we still have a significant number of officers.
Ongoing cases.
Significant number of ongoing cases.
This internal system that you've mentioned, is it the one that brought in the DCI in what we saw last year, the purge within the KRA? Or was this a DCI instigated move?
You need to appreciate that in as much as we have internal mechanisms, the other agencies of government still hold their mandates, still reserve their mandates to do the actions that they did. And DCI on his own has the mandate to take that kind of action.
Then looking at the number of people that DCI came, investigated and arrested and the DPP took to court, and all those measures taken, isn't that an indictment to your own internal system, that your internal system had actually not been able to detect all these cases? or had detected them but then was letting them
If
stay?
you follow the statistics, I think we have offloaded more than that number in terms of persons found with wanting integrity.
Over time.
It takes us back to the same issue of communication or education, as you call it. You see, if we who are supposedly in a position to be well informed are not well informed about these things, which are actually good and for our benefit, how much more ignorant do you think the general public is? And yet, there's all this good. In this case, I would argue good that is being done but is unknown might as well not exist.
I think you are asking me or asking KRA to pull up their socks in information sharing.
Precisely.
100%.
Precisely.
We have been sharing a lot of information. Probably
it's the way perhaps we even share it. They're sharing it, yes. There are all these projects 1 year of this and this machinani, this and this. Given that everyone in this country pays tax, whether you know it or not, but you do, surely KRA should perhaps take this particular duty a little more seriously. Than they currently do.
Without appearing to be defending KRA, the feedback that we get through the various indicators, World Bank, ease of doing business, is showing that our services are improving, and we have assisted Kenya climb up the ladder of the ranking of the ease of doing business.
This is the same World Bank that advised the government to sell their houses. Same World Bank. Huh? This is the same World Bank who 20 years ago informed us that we were going to be a failed state within a period of same World Bank, or is this a different World Bank?
We also, from the feedback we are getting from the representative organizations, they are also telling us it is getting better.
Do you conduct actually your own independent polling to find out this is what the people are saying? This is the feedback. This is the perception that the public has about KRA.
Yes, and it is getting better.
It seems like it's all very rosy where you're sitting.
It is getting better.
Getting better.
But we are getting better every other day. And we take even the feedback that you are giving me here. We will of course go and discuss it and see whether you as a media house can help us with more information about areas of pain to our taxpayers.
Caxton Masudi is the Deputy Commissioner in charge of Policy and Tax Advisory at the Kenya Revenue Authority. We'll open up the phone lines now, 0719-012-600. I'm sure there are very many people who would have one or two things to tell Caxton or to ask Caxton. Now, we'll take those calls immediately after we take a look at what's happening on the roads at 27 minutes to 9 o'clock.
Spice FM, Nyeri. Traffic.
All right, heavy traffic on Mombasa Road this morning, of course, trying to leave Mlolongo and coming past the SGR. There's a serious problem there. It seems to be the case every morning where the road narrows and then opens up later, and we see it opening up right around GM. So there's some traffic there that you definitely will experience. Of course, we still have the perennial problem that is Thika Road. Everywhere else seems to be moving quite smoothly right around now. Unfortunately, Komarok Road to Kariobangi is bumper to bumper, coming off of Thika Road and then trying to join into the CBD, not happening as clear as we would like it to. Gong Road, it definitely is going to need some patience. It's moving, but moving extremely slowly this morning. Langata Road jam from Galleria Mall. Of course, the question is, what exactly is going on? Everybody's on the roads this morning trying to get where they're going. You're going to have to exercise some patience while getting there. Traffic hour is almost over, so let's see what happens in a short while. Spice FM KE 0719-012-600. Tell us what you see. Let's see how we can keep people moving, won't you?
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Conversation continues. You've opened up the phone lines 0719 012 600. That's 0719 012 600. Any question for KRA Deputy Commissioner in charge of Policy and Tax Advisory, Caxton Masudi? Lydia in Nairobi. Good morning, Lydia.
Spice FM, thank you for this good dialogue with each other. We don't need demonstrations to bring violence. We need to talk to each other as friends.
Thank you,
What
Lydia.
I wanted to say is taxes are important. Otherwise, the country cannot be managed. But what I'm trying to say is our good President Kibaki made the government small. And he told the Safaricom, Airtel, they should not be charged 6 billion license. Now that is a heavy weight on us. That is also like a tax. And now recently you are charging a tax on airtime, 10%. And there are so many cartels coming in for tax to charge a kind of a tax. Now even the city counties, you pay one license. When you go to Old Kalau or Nakuru, Limuru, where's your license to do work here? You go to Kisumu, where's your license? And when I was at United Business Association, I was at Kenya School of Monetary Studies speaking that, and Treasury said you pay one license to do work all over Kenya.
All over the country.
But this has changed. So there are so many cartels demanding taxes in the form of license, in the form of levies, in the form of parking. So these are very heavy weights
Thank you.
to add
Thank
to
you,
the
Lydia.
taxes.
Thank you, Lydia. We'll ask him that. Actually, Caxton also, she was talking about people feeling heavily burdened by overtaxation and very many levies around the country. You're the man, actually, to respond to this because you're in charge of tax advisory and policy.
First, I must say that if you compare Kenya with many other countries around the world, we don't necessarily have the highest tax burden. Yes, Kenyans may be saying that they would have preferred fewer taxes, but these are proposals that can find their way into government, into parliament, and you need to appreciate that the public feedback, proposals and requests from Kenyans is always taken into consideration in every budget cycle. But I just want to dissuade us from believing that Kenya has the highest tax burden.
There are those that have said Kenya operates without a tax policy. Is this true? Do we have a tax policy in place? Is it important?
Maybe that may not be true. I mean, you cannot come up with tax policies without having a policy. Probably what people would be saying is there have been tax policies addressing specific issues, and probably what we need now is an overall tax policy, one document, instead of having them in multiple documents.
Yeah. And is it important to have that?
Yes, and I want to say that the National Treasury is actually working on that.
How long before we see it coming to life?
I may not be able to speak for, for the National Treasury.
We are taking more calls from you, 0719 012 600. That's 0719 012 600, because we have on the hot seat this morning the Deputy Commissioner for KRA in charge of Policy and Tax Advisory, Caxton Masudi. As I get this call to be vetted by our producer, this is Sami on the line. Let me ask you this question, just taking us back to the turnover tax. So we have the turnover tax and we have the presumptive tax. Same small businesses, when they go to apply for a license with a local council, they pay a tax. And now you're telling them to pay another tax. Is this double taxation? How do you explain that?
No, it's not double taxation. Presumptive tax feeds into turnover tax. And let me explain this. Presumptive tax is charged as a percentage, actually 15% of the license fees levied by the county governments. So what happens is that becomes an advance tax to turnover tax. Now, if you paid, for example, 5,000 shillings as a presumptive tax this month, when you come to make your return for turnover tax by the 20th of February, the 5,000 is available to you as credit. If, for example, your turnover tax for the month of January payable by the 20th of February will be 10,000, then you will only pay 5,000 because the 5,000 you paid as presumptive tax becomes a credit.
Is presumptive
If,
tax
for example,
monthly or annual?
If, for example, it is less than 5,000 that you paid as presumptive tax, say 3,000, the turnover tax computed 3,000, you will still have balance of 2,000 as a credit to offset again in the month of March.
Month.
Yes, until you exhaust that. That's when now you start paying the additional turnover tax. So there is no double taxation.
Going back to the lines, Dennis in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you? What's your
Good
question
morning.
for Caxton?
Oh, it wasn't a question, but a message.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what we need right now in Kenya is a free life. Like, we're so tired with all this frustration that we are going through. You know, I'm still a youth, but I'm tired living in Kenya because of all this frustration happening in the government. Hello?
So
Yes.
you want what? You want tax holiday?
No, it's not about tax holiday. The thing is, all these rules that are being brought up daily, like every day, you know, like it's making living in Kenya a very hard task. Like it's like you have to go through a lot of process.
Are you employed or are you in self-employment?
No, I'm employed, like just a hustler actually.
You are employed in the industry of hustling.
Yeah, not in the industry of hustling, but I'm employed in a way that I have to do I go through a lot of things to survive.
So all these taxes that we speak of add to the burden that you already have.
Okay, I don't know if you're getting my point actually.
Yes, I'm getting. Do we understand you to be saying that these taxes are too many?
No, I'm not saying these taxes are too many,
Yes.
but actually they are. But what I'm trying to say is that let them stop frustrating us because we are being frustrated by these people.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know if you get
Which
the point.
people are you speaking of, sir?
Kere?
I'm talking about the KRA, yeah.
Okay.
And how exactly are they frustrating you?
Come on, it's always in the news. You see them every day.
Okay.
Sami in Magarini, good morning.
Yes, good morning, everybody.
Good
morning.
Good morning, Sammy.
Yes, I have two questions for the visitor. Yes, one question is, how do they ensure that those people who are owning big businesses, they adhere to the rules that they have to use that machine? Whenever they give a receipt, they have that machine. And how do they ensure that we people, ordinary people, know that we have to be issued with the receipt so that those money go to the necessary coffer, please?
All right. So to ensure that big businesses that are registered for VAT actually use the ETR machine, right? That's the question he's asking. We're going to pick one more, then you can respond to them. We have, I think, Mohammed, who's shortly on the line. John, is Mohammed ready? Right. Maybe Caxton, you can respond to those two.
I think when it comes to large corporations, companies, we still use the same arrangements to ensure that they pay their taxes. One of the ways is that they are aware about their responsibilities, they understand the law. That is education. Number two is that when in terms of VAT, to ensure that companies declare the correct amounts of VAT, we have various ways. Number one is that we first of all also be educating the public to ensure that they ask for a receipt anyway. So I think what some should be knowing is that when you buy goods, as a patriotic responsibility, you should insist on having a VAT fiscal receipt or an ETR issued receipt. But in the event that they are not complying, we have also the issue of enforcement, where we have teams of officers going outside there and identifying persons that are not charging VAT where they are required to charge VAT. Then we have something we rolled out, which it's a discussion for another day. The issue of value VAT automated assessments, where a person claiming VAT must have a corresponding invoice to corresponding declaration that supports a claim of VAT. And in this, we have flashed out a lot of people who have been cheating on VAT and actually recovered more than 3 billion shillings just in the last 1 year.
So these are people who are claiming VAT that they hadn't.
Yes, they hadn't paid.
It's catching the cheats.
Yes, it is actually cutting the cheat. So it's working. And we are also now in the process of upgrading the ETR regime to ensure that every receipt issued, the information is relayed to the tax authority, expeditiously through a remote connection. And then that, again, will make us avoid this issue of people saying they have issued a receipt, and at the end of the month, they do not tell us. Yeah. They don't declare that sale.
Let's go back to the lines. Musa in Nairobi. Good morning, Musa.
Good morning to you. How are you?
We're fine, thank you.
Yes, I have a question about the VAT.
Yep.
Because wherever other organizations are charged the VAT, they push it to the customer, which is the VAT that is supposed to go to the customer and to the person who is pushing it to the customer. Because this is why you see people are making noise. Every place you are paying tax. Every purchase, everything you do, you are paying tax, and there is nobody who is recognizing that it is you
who paid the tax,
who is paying all these taxes.
Answer that.
I think to just appreciate, VAT is a consumption tax, just as excise is a consumption tax. Consumption taxes are paid by the final consumer. This is how it works. So what Musa is saying is true. I mean, they are the ones who pay taxes, but they should be proud that they are contributing to nation building.
I think it's very. The thing is, if I may just interject there, it's very difficult. It's very difficult for citizens to reconcile pride and patriotism when they are being pressed down at every side. And you've heard what he said. How do you reconcile the two? Whereby here, I'm trying to make this 10 shillings that I have work. You're taking 3%. I'm trying to feed a family. I'm trying to do those other things. And at the same time, you're asking me to be proud. How do we reconcile the two, really?
I think one of the things that needs to come out very clearly, every country is developed by contributions from their citizens and residents. This is a given thing. Those great countries you are hearing about, around the world, it is because of the contributions from their citizens. It is unfortunate that in some cases in Kenya, some sectors of our economy did not make this contribution. And maybe when you now tell them it is time for you to make a contribution, they find it a little bit inconveniencing, but it is a responsibility they need to live up to.
Okay, I understand. And when we asked this question previously, you said that, okay, well, you're not able to answer that because for you as KRA, what you're supposed to do is just, pick up the money. What is done with it after that is not within your purview. That's understood. Now, if you look around other countries in the world, which you've just given reference to, if they charge a higher tax, you can see the correlation between the charge of this tax and what is actually provided for the citizens, the services that are provided. Direct correlation. We'll give some examples of countries in other parts of the world. Sweden, for example. Norway, for example, charged up to 60% of their income as an example. But education is free. until university.
Not just free, not free Kenyan style. It's really
It's
free.
really
Meaning
free.
You don't pay
100%.
anything.
You
That's
literally
free.
you don't the road, the infrastructure is stellar. You don't have a problem until they're even able to feed people who are not able to earn a living on their own. The welfare system is impeccable. How then do we correlate? I know you said it's not within your purview, but then how do we correlate? How do we reconcile the two? And it must be something, because you talked about taking the interests of people to heart, when you make your recommendations. This must be one of the things that's brought into contention.
I think
Yes.
something has to come out here.
Yes.
In business, you start with an investment. You don't start with
the dividends.
with the dividends. These countries you are talking about, at one point, they were like us, but their citizens kept on contributing to develop those countries, and that's why
There were fewer
the
thieves.
mobilization of revenue, is supposed to be a responsibility for each Kenyan, so that all these issues they are raising can be addressed. Because if you don't pay tax, how will the roads be refixed?
So what you're saying is that eventually these things will happen.
This is
Let's keep the
only
faith.
way to go.
Keep the faith. Keep contributing your taxes.
Don't worry.
Don't
One
worry.
day.
One day, we shall be able. Caxton will be able to collect revenue, and that revenue will be utilized.
And then he
better.
can even make recommendations to to Treasury and say, look here.
His point is
Based on
actually-
what we've
his
collected.
point is actually valid. You know why it's valid? It's because in the absence of that money, this non-performance of other arms of government is not as though it's going to improve if we have less taxes. So you do your bit.
Yep.
And then look for other mechanisms of ensuring that those are the
Hold
fellows
the
who
others
do their
accountable
bit.
for their bits.
Yes, but you do your bit. Don't stop doing your bit because somebody else is reneging on their bit.
And that's a very strong point. Thank you very much, Caxton. Thank you for joining us this morning, for
Thank you
answering
so
our
much.
questions. Well, of course, we'll invite you again before the 20th of February so that you can teach the people how to use the mobile application on payment of
We'll appreciate
the
it,
turnover tax. Thank you very much. We've been having on the hot seat Caxton Masudi. He's the Deputy Commissioner in charge of policy and tax advisory at the Kenya Revenue Authority. Of course, we were talking about tax matters in general, and in particular the new tax, the turnover tax. He says, of course, the first time that you should be paying for this is the 20th of February because it came into effect in January. We'll have you again soon, Caxton. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Situation Room is Kenya's biggest conversation, and the conversation continues on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE, Facebook, Twitter, and of course Instagram. Good morning.
.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice
is the first
FM,
and only
Nairobi.
24-hour audio-visual station in the country and actually in the region. What I mean by that is that this station broadcasts on radio, and also we have radio we have video on radio. When I say that we are live streaming on Facebook, it means that we are actually live streaming pictures on Facebook. We are live streaming pictures, video footage on YouTube. We are live streaming video footage on our Twitter handle at SpiceFMKE. Join the conversation at any moment on SpiceFMKE at SpiceFMKE Twitter. The hashtag is the Situation Room. You can also tag us individually, CT Muga, Eric Latif at Nduoko. It's 5 minutes to 9 o'clock. The conversation continues, and now CT Muga has a new one.
This conversation on tax, actually, one gets the impression that one never really fully exhausts it. And that there's always so much more you could actually be talking about, isn't it? Okay. Now, yesterday we talked about political journalism. Today I want to look at something along those same lines, but something different. Utterances made in the political arena, utterances made in the social arena, utterances made in the religious arena, utterances made in public by leaders, utterances made in public by the citizenry. what their import is and why it is they're made. But why do I want to talk about utterances? Well, one of the things that we talk about in this particular station is political communication. What politicians, not in the study of it, but the outcome of it as we see it by usage through our politicians. And one of the things that stands out, without any doubt or any shadow of doubt, is the effect that these utterances have. In the last few weeks, one of the things that has been center stage debate is the utterances of one politician, a certain Ms. Wahome, and the things she said about the president. And it isn't the only time that some utterances have held center stage in a conversation about such matters in the country. There are other people who are known to make such utterances, and we acknowledge them by the bizarre nature of their utterances. And I'll mention them by name. One is a gentleman, an MP, of course, by the name of Babu Owino. Another one is another one by the name of Moses Kuria. People who've been known to say such bizarre things, you actually wonder, do they understand the import of the things they say? Some of them are misogynistic completely because they are men and they say things about women that you actually wonder, as leaders and who are in positions of authority, do they really know what it is that these utterances actually mean and what they could amount to? Now, one of the things that, again, people perhaps do not fully appreciate is that when you talk about politics, you cannot discuss it and not talk about campaigning. Now, this country has been in the throes of campaign since the last election. Unfortunately, it is true. Whether it's a discussion of the BBI, whether it's a discussion of polarization among political parties, it is campaigning season. And campaigns by their nature are not polite. And because they're not polite, and how do we know this? It's by the words, the things that people say. The tool of operation of any campaign is words. Now, we have a situation in this country that actually must be brought under heel. And I'm saying this, that unless and until we understand that some of these utterances that we keep allowing into the public space are actually harmful, not just to the public ethos, but they're also harmful to the very process of development and the process of the social and psychological development of its citizenry. These utterances must be put to a halt.
How do we do that? Is that the reason why we came up with the National Cohesion and Integration Commission?
I have been told that commission exists.
To police, to take action,
I've been
to
told
actually...
that they even have officers who are supposed to operationalize its activities. I have not really seen it in operation in a way that one could argue would bring about change. We've had people arrested for hate speech. That went away. Hate speech has come back. It's just come back in a different form.
They are arrested as well.
In the recent past, people have not been arrested.
There is a senator who's been arrested over hate speech.
Yes. What did he say?
I don't remember what he said. I don't want to repeat it. Like you're telling us, we should not be allowing these conversations to happen in the public arena.
What did he refer to?
He was making certain utterances that the NCIC and the DCI felt that this is what we call insightful and inflammatory statements. And therefore, case has been taken against him. Right? So you see, NCIC is in office. Probably what I should be asking you is, how do you want to see, what kind of action do you want to see? In what format do you want to see this kind of action? Well,
first of all, like with many things, there are things people say, and as I said, they may not really be aware of the import. They may say it for purposes of populism. Like some of the utterances people say, it's what keeps them in the media. It's what keeps them alive. It's what gives them the sort of attention that they require. But there's harm attached to that importance and the things that they say. And this harm isn't fully realized. For instance, if someone utters a statement and says, this particular individual who has said these unspeakable things, according to them, about the president, we will shave every hair on their body. Now, has this person been brought to book? Has something happened to them?
No.
And when you look at the statements that they're riling or speaking against, what really did this lady actually say? There are those who say she insulted the president. Now, this word insult, if you look at the vocabulary of the word and in our country, it often means something that people think shouldn't be said. It doesn't mean that it's even necessarily offensive. No.
It's what you shouldn't say is what you've said.
Yes. Now, the
Let's
moment you
continue
say
this
it,
conversation. Sorry,
Yes.
City. Let's continue with the conversation.
After.
Soon after we take a look at what's happening on the roads. I think let's see if we can get an update from Mwiki Road as well. Is the demonstration is getting into day 4. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice
Okay,
FM.
just when it seemed that
Nairobi.
things were getting a little bit better, Langata Road, Bagathi Way, today, quite abnormal traffic this morning, absolutely nothing. And there are quite a number of policemen along the way. It could mean that someone of some great importance is going somewhere, but we'll wait and find out. But for now, you're going to have to sit tight. Okay, let's take a look at what's happening on Thika Road. Of course, we have the spillover from what is a lot of human traffic from Mwiki Kasarani area. Of course, we know that road has been closed because of the protesters who are not going to allow the road to be used until something is done about the very poor state of that road. So we have a lot of traffic in the area. And of course, the matatus have blocked off a certain part of that road, not allowing it to be used. The southern bypass and the eastern bypass are great options for you to use this morning if you're stuck on Langata Road or if you're stuck on Mombasa Road, trying to get off or into town. All right, Jogo Road, there's no traffic at all whatsoever. It is totally cleared up. Getting you into the city centre will not be difficult from there. Let's see what it looks like in other parts, coming from Wayaki Way, Westlands, and down into the CBD, and no problem whatsoever. So traffic hour is officially over, but some remnants of the same. Spice FM KE, if you see something else we should know about, don't hesitate to let us know.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
2.5 minutes past 9 o'clock. Good morning. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi, worldwide, www.spicefm.co.ke. CT Muga is talking about, the people understanding the import of what they say in public, especially public leaders and politicians.
What has taken center stage with the speech that Alice Wahome made was what was then reported as an insult to the president.
Yeah.
Now, for the longest time in this country, any speech, any statement that has been perceived to be anti the leader who is considered to be the one who perhaps is the head of a community or a tribe, any utterance for the longest time, it doesn't have to be offensive. It is considered an insult. Now, our political landscape has encouraged this sort of culture for the longest time, to the point where you actually cannot oppose certain leaders. You cannot say anything that even appears to differ from a stated position that that particular leader has. Now, when this is the yardstick that is used for utterances, then I'm afraid chapter 1 is being abrogated in every possible way, because the rights of the individual to actually air their opinion or to speak out has been interfered with. And it isn't the same as the offensive statements that people make.
As long as it's not insightful, ethnic offense, there are laws that govern these things. When it comes to NCIC Act, it talks about insulting communities or tribes, ethnicity. The Penal Code talks about inciting violence.
You know why?
If Alice Wahome calls a press conference today and she says, this is what I think. I think the president is taking us for a ride. I think the president is doing this and the other. I think he's plotting to stay in power. What's wrong with her doing that?
Actually, I find nothing absolutely wrong with what she said. if you ask me. There's nothing wrong.
The reaction, however, is where the problem comes in.
Yes.
When you have an MP like Babu Owino tweeting and saying we are going to shave
Any part of the body on which there is some growth of hair, now that is insulting.
because we know exactly what he's talking about.
We do know what he's trying to say, and it's offensive, it is rude. Think of
It borders on sexual violence.
Actually, it should be actionable. Now, if you have the sort of thing that the same Moses Kuria, who is now, I think he's received a partial scholarship, he's at some remand place or the other. He has made similar utterances, and you wonder, God Almighty, what
were you
earth is
thinking
this
when you
person
opened your
talking
mouth?
about? All right? Now, so long as they say these things, why this is an issue is it seems to be, it's a source of amusement. It is not actually amusing. It isn't. And then when someone states what someone like Alice Wahome stated, it's suddenly an insult. It's not an insult.
Yeah.
No, it isn't. If someone disagrees with a leader or someone in authority, all they've done is disagree. They haven't caused offense. You may see it as offense, but I don't think the intention was to cause offense. The intention was to tell you what they think and probably give you reasons as to why.
And
they
they've
think.
used civil language
They
to express themselves.
And they've even bothered to explain. All right?
Yeah, where they're coming from.
Yes. Now, this isn't quite the same as what we're referring to yesterday when we're talking about political journalism and we're talking about some of the things that people say. No. These are actual utterances, and we know exactly what they have said. We know where they have said it. We know exactly what it is that they probably intend to achieve by these utterances. It's not that we do not know. We do know.
Do you have a problem with the media highlighting what Babu Owino says, for
I do.
example? Or Samson Cherargei,
I do,
the
up to a
senator
point. Reporting it is one thing. Now, this is where yesterday's discussion comes in. Having reported it, there needs to be a discussion about it and say, you know something, this sort of thing falls into this category of blah, 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 which you shouldn't actually entertain. Now, but if you report it and say this is what he said,
and you leave it there, you throw it up for a lot more speculation to come about it, whether it was right or wrong, whether he was, allowed to say such a thing or not. I mean, giving it some direction immediately after you gave the statement that he had said it, then is what needs to happen thereafter. Because it is clear that such kind of utterances coming from a leader should not be acceptable. Really, if we're going to look at it, it should not come from anyone.
You know, all these utterances have intentions. They're not up in the air and they're not in a vacuum. There is something they're purposed for, and the people who utter them are very clear about what they purpose. Now, perhaps one of the reasons why we've acted very decisively against hate speech, because we understand what it's intended. It's intended to incite.
Right.
And we know the consequences of these things.
We've seen the consequences of these
worldwide,
things play out around the world.
We know. Okay? But these other utterances are not lesser offenses, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They're not. Because, one, if it is directed at a lady, it is misogynistic. You are actually using language to make a subhuman comment about another individual. It should be actionable. It shouldn't be allowed.
Where I think the problem coming in, and I find this is where we go wrong, is when these people are taken to court, they'll always come up with an excuse, an explanation. You got me out of context. When I said this is what I meant.
But some
this
of
is
these
language.
Things,
this is if you understand me in a certain way, that's you who understood me. That's not exactly what I meant.
But by the time he was saying this, I don't think if you're going to use this one example of what the MP Owino actually said, he wasn't saying it to be nice to anyone. There was a message he was trying to pass across, and of course it was coming forward as insulting, and he knew that because he didn't stop at that. He went on further. You see what I'm saying?
Yes,
so
I know.
It was not.
But if this
was
person goes to court, they'll actually start explaining for themselves and saying, this is the language that we use ordinarily in this country.
Where?
Nitakunyoa. Tumewanyoa. Tumewanyoa means that we have defeated them, that we have, vanquished them, that
Yes,
we have
but that is
beaten
not
them.
what he said.
That is not what he said.
You see, he can say context. This is what I meant. We have seen these cases go to court.
We have.
The same Moses Kuria actually went to court and said, this is what I meant. This is what I meant. He went and said, I was talking about a specific brand called Gucci, and not the way you guys understood to be talking about dogs. Translation.
That quote was
where do we draw the line between
draw
what
the
you
line.
say and what I say? This is what I meant.
What you actually can draw the line. If somebody has a sympathetic quote, they will say, okay, let's give this fellow the benefit of doubt. The unfortunate thing is this. If no serious action is taken, what you're doing silently is encouraging other people to follow that particular line of thought and that process of conversation. That's what you're doing. And if you think that the last elections had utterances that you thought were vile, I foresee that come 2022, we are going to hear things that we've never thought we'd actually hear in our lifetime. And the reason is because they will feel they can get away with it.
Because they have gotten away with it in the past.
Yes.
And you get away with just a slap on the wrist, being able to say some of these things, and it shouldn't be the case. Regardless of whether the individual is your arch rival, regardless of whether they're in the opposition, regardless of whether you don't like the way they look, you should not be able to say such things. Now, of course, the difficulty comes in curtailing some of these utterances or curtailing some of these attitudes that people may have. How then do you stop someone from making sure that their brain to mouth filter doesn't actually function?
But
How do we do that?
And when it comes out, then you don't broadcast it to a wider audience.
Well, there's one definite way to do it, to make sure that, okay, well, it was said in this area, okay, then we forget about it. But then when it comes out in a forum like social media, for example, that everybody in this day and age immediately has access to, then it's very difficult then to be able to curtail such things, because then you have immediate responses. People start to analyze, say this, that, and the other thing, until it gets to a higher place, like a court of law, for example. People are going to have their way at it. People are going to say what they want. They're going to make their own inferences.
Consider the concept of censorship. If you listen to speeches that people make, you will often find that popular swear words or offensive words, that they tend to be four-letter words, unfortunately, that people like using, you'll find when that word is uttered, it's a blank.
Okay.
Why? It's not broadcasted. Everything you say up to that point, then that word, no one hears it.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, why is this? It's because it's been recognized.
That's offensive.
It is offensive. You may think within a certain circle that it's communicative, but by and large, it is considered offensive.
And rebroadcasting it takes
you
us
are
to a point
broadcasting
where
offense.
We are normalizing it.
Yes, exactly. Now, then there'll be consequences thereafter, and you'll fail, and then you'll want to find reason to explain away the consequences of something that you've contributed to. Now, this one is not about the media here, no. I am talking about not just politicians. That's why I said whatever social realm. Whenever someone has utterances that they think support a certain view or a certain intention that they have, and yet the consequences of those utterances, when broadcasted to a much larger audience, have dire consequences, these people should actually be held accountable for the things that they say. If, for instance, you say, we are going to give every student who has done this exam places, you better give them positions, because it's an utterance. You've made a statement, and there'll be expectations. Now, if your intention was to make people feel good about it, well, they'll feel good, done. Now, find the places. If you say, for instance, there'll be 5 billion shillings that will be allocated to people who are displaced by the floods, we need to see these resettlements, whatever it is, and we need a timeline telling us this is what we're going to do and this is what it means. We'll provide this.
And the nature of,
Yes.
Is it new homes? Is it new buying for them new pieces of land?
We've just had a discussion with a senior director in KRA, and they said they're rolling out these things. And we asked them, when? And when you roll it out, what will be the component of this particular instrument? Because you say it's going to be user-friendly. When you say user-friendly, what do you mean? Now, these are the sort of things, because all these are utterances. Whether it is a spur-of-the-moment utterance to serve an immediate need, whether it's being persuasive because you need to explain something and you're perhaps in a tight corner and you don't know what to say, so you say what you think will be convenient, or whether you have a long-term intention in your utterances. I was looking at today's paper, and two things came to mind. This is the Standard, and I'm looking at page 4 and 5. And there is a certain gentleman, an MP for Bahati, and he said, we are ready to pay the price in standing with the DP. They can arrest us, but they won't stop his bid. The BBI meeting in Kisii was Raila Odinga's campaign. Now, it's an utterance. He has issues, his views, that's what he thinks. He shouldn't be demonized for saying what he thinks. That's what he thinks. If you have a view that's contrary to it, it's not offensive, it's not insulting. He has just made a statement.
His opinion.
It's his opinion. You should counter it by stating what your opinion is. If you then read the next page, and there's the Ministry of Ruto's one-day trip to Sudan, where they met at the Khartoum airport with one Kalonzo Musyoka. And the former vice president says it was coincidental. That's what he has said. If you think you have information to the contrary, then you should
Provide
state
it.
your statement and provide it. But what do our politicians do? You will hear utterances like you've never heard before. Utterances.
Taking them to account is where I think we see problems. So the case against the Senator Cherargei, he was arrested in December. This is the Nandi County Senator Samson Cherargei. He was arrested in December, taken to court over remarks that he had made weeks earlier. So it takes so long to take action against somebody. So we have to go through the entire process. So police record a statement, take it to the DCI investigate, take your file to DPP okays prosecution. By the time you're taking this person to court and you don't even have, what he said verbatim, then the import of what he wanted to say, if he was passing a message that he wanted to incite people, he's already incited them. Whether you're taking him to court or not, the message has already been delivered to the people and you didn't take immediate and swift action.
Yes.
We see these all the time. Babu Owino, any cases that has been brought against him so far?
No,
we haven't
that's the
seen.
point. But then, Eric, there's the other utterances that we in the media make. Our headlines are utterances. Okay? If I read page 6, Ruto increasingly becoming an outsider in his own government, it's an utterance by the media trying to explain a position, right? Now, this ties in with what we were saying yesterday regarding how it is that we make these statements which actually represent an alternate reality. The truth of the matter is that what we're seeing is a political process that has actually taken place in this country before. It is not something that is new. Politicians having different perspectives, different views, and differing, that happens literally all the time in politics within the party. But it's interesting because the union of these two gentlemen with their parties, on the unifying of their parties, is what brought about the government that we currently have. And so the assumption is, it's not stated that if these two seem to differ to the point where they split, then it means that the government is split. That is the assumption. There are people who've actually said it, that this government is split in two. Now, the new narrative has come in. The role of the opposition has now been delegated to a certain group who are within government. It's an utterance. The truth of the matter is this. For the longest time, people who are not necessarily in the opposition, but who are deemed not to favor the person who is in power, have been denied access to this individual, have been denied access to venues. There's nothing that's happening now that hasn't happened before. Maybe it's happening for the first time to these individuals. And it's happening and it's an issue because they expected it not to happen. But then again, what on earth do you expect when your utterances seem to constantly oppose the person who is actually in power and is the president, and the things that you say are deemed and interpreted as opposing his views, his interests? What do you expect? Now, these are the consequences you speak of. When you're shut out, the person will say, I do not wish to have this person in my presence.
Right.
And that is, again, their prerogative.
The conversation continues. This is Spice FM, Kenya's biggest conversation. Eric Latif, CT Muga, and Ndu Okwat, 18 minutes past 9. Of course, we'll be opening up the phone lines shortly. 0719012600. I don't know why that thing.
It's the second day in a row. Let's see if you can make 3 tomorrow.
Yeah.
The shown line fortly.
Yes. Hey,
Yeah.
I'll have a new way of saying it.
By tomorrow.
Phone lines will be open shortly.
Good. 10 out of 10.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Spice and everything nice. Alright, okay. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Well, it's interesting to know
Mornings
really what
done right. 94.4 Spice
oftentimes you
FM,
ask
Nairobi.
yourself, what actually then can be done? Because we keep saying, okay, then what is the solution? What can we do? Where can we go with this? Now, if you want to look at what, of course, pointing to examples of what happened in Rwanda. Now, there was a gentleman called Ferdinand Nahimana, and he was a radio journalist. And he was handed life in prison, which is the most severe penalty that could be handed down by the tribunal at that time. And he was the owner and editor of the Hutu extremist newspaper Kangura in Rwanda. Now, this man did not get out and kill anyone. He wasn't in the forefront of the war, of the genocide. He didn't slash anybody's throat. But essentially what he did is that he fanned the flames of the genocide by utterances that he made behind the microphone. It was detrimental because then, of course, people picked up on what he was saying and went along with it and then proceeded to go and kill by virtue of the fact that what he said. I think understanding the consequences of what leaders, people in positions of influence can actually say and the repercussions of these utterances, understanding really how far it can go, then it would probably be something for us to think about in terms of then what could happen. This gentleman is going to be in jail for the rest of his life, because of this. And he could have stopped himself from speaking, but he spoke over and over and over again. Nothing was done until the point that it resulted in the deaths of very, very, very many people. And it could be seen as there was a direct correlation between what he said and then the violence that was meted out on people. Absolutely. So I think for us to use those examples to see Hitler, it can be said, yes, was a soldier at some point, but a lot of things that came about in the Second World War were as a result of words that he spoke, sensationalism that he brought about because of what he said, and then got people to believe or to hinge on to a particular belief. So I think it is important. We don't really understand the thin line between what you say and how people pick it up and what they will then do with it.
You know, Germany right now is going through a very interesting psychological process. And you have people who are now grown up, whose grandfathers, some great-grandparents were Nazi members, and they're asking these questions. How is it that you participated and believed in this policy that even by the standards of those days was clearly wrong? What was it that was going through your mind when you supported these things, which led to the extermination of this number of people? Now, by the way, let me just add something here. When people speak of genocides in the 20th century, they assume that the Second World War is where you first witnessed it. Actually, no. In 1904 to 1908 is when we first witnessed the century's genocide, and it took place in what we now call Namibia, Southwest Africa. It was then a German colony. The Herero has and the people who lived in that area, the Germans not displaced, exterminated tens of thousands of individuals living in that particular area. Now, with the Treaty of Versailles, one of the things that the Germans had to do was to give those territories that they owned colonially away. But now, what happened in Germany, right now, the generation that's now there, that's when the questions have come full circle. And they're asking, because they're looking and saying, this history is a burden to us and we didn't participate in it.
Yeah.
What on earth were you people thinking when you went through this thing to give us this image that is difficult to shed? It doesn't matter which way you turn.
Forever tainted.
Yes, it doesn't matter what you do. It's this heavy cloud that is constantly going to hang over our heads. Now, that unfortunately is the burden that you bear with these things that start small as utterances. When they gain momentum and they continue, what they often do is they are then directed first as an individual, then be a small group, then a larger group of people. Then the dehumanization process which profiling brings about takes place. the consequences of these things are known. So they must not be taken lightly. And they must even actually not be entertained in whatever form. And it shouldn't even be seen as humor. It's not humorous.
It's not funny. And
We
that's
need to change
the
the
first
way we deal
reaction.
with
The
these
first
things.
reaction is laughing or, humor. I say, okay, well, there he is again. Or there,
No.
there they are again, laughing. No, it shouldn't be. It should not be the first response to this. But unfortunately, that is where we are now.
We have gotten to that point. The reason why NCIC was actually established is because of such. Because of ethnic hatred being propagated, because of hate speech being propagated. And so that NCIC can go around the country and tell people, this is how we need to live with one another as human beings. And those that don't, action is taken against them. Now, when you don't see consequences of people making these utterances, it becomes normal. We have gotten to a point where it's getting normalized. So yes, a senator will be arrested, taken to court, released on bail, out on bail. Case will take 5 years, 6 years, 10 years. If you don't see any kind of action, any kind of punitive action, this is where we are going wrong. We need to change. I think we need to change the way we are dealing with hate speech. And let's get to a point where we say those cases are prosecuted as soon as. You make a statement today, the local police commander has the power to arrest you. The local police commander, prepares a case against you immediately, and you're taken to court. The local prosecutor, because we know the DPP has prosecutors around the country, you're taken to court immediately. Strike while it's still hot. It's taking too long to do this. And then
right, because of course, then, such things and the whole situation loses its potency along the way. When it's wrapped up in court procedure for the next 5 to 6 years, then what it is that, do you even remember at some point? You're right, I think, Eric. Because do you even remember then what was said?
Can't even
Do you
remember.
even feel the political or whatever temperature there was at that point when 5 years down the line, evidence is being sought? Maybe this person is no longer in the limelight. Maybe, so much has happened. There's so much water under the bridge by that point that nobody's even thinking about it. So I think at that point, to understand the gravity of what it is that is said, of some of these utterances that are made, I think, yes, questions, investigations, prosecution need to happen immediately for such things. Unfortunately, if we go back again to what we saw was the Rwanda genocide, what years were we looking at? 1998. These convictions, for example, these guys happened in 2003. This was 5 years later after the genocide.
94, actually.
Sorry, 94. So it was 10 years.
10 years later.
It's 10 years after. But the wounds were still fresh. The magnitude...
you can say maybe the gravity of that particular case
exactly
required that this goes through that process.
This is what I'm saying.
But by that time, those people who had incited, made such inflammatory remarks at the local level had been dealt with. The Gacaca courts and all the others had dealt with these things. There are people who had been jailed for minor, what we may consider minor utterances at local level. We should be dealing with them at this local level. So we say, if somebody like what we're talking about, Babu Owino has made this statement, broadcast this statement on social media, take action immediately. Immediately take them to court. Now the issues of civil liberties comes in. Do you allow this person to still enjoy their civil liberties, their civil rights? Do they have the right to a fair trial? Do they have a right to, go and defend themselves?
Yeah, unfortunately,
How
those
can
things
we
you can't
fast
take
track
away.
these things?
This is the thing, unfortunately.
Actually,
those things
we
can't-
should be able to
listen,
take them away.
According
You
to the
should.
law, what are we saying? Essentially,
I'm
amend
saying
the law
that
to take some of these
behavior-
things
that
into
behavior is
consideration.
antisocial.
We should be able to take them
That
away.
is antisocial behavior. You see, the reason why you're permitted to coexist with other human beings is because you've understood the collective responsibility of living with others. If you abrogate that law and you want to live according to your laws, then unfortunately you will not. That right should be stripped. Because it is a right that's given to you.
Yeah.
That's the nature of rights. Now, you constantly break it and you feel that you have a
You can
right.
get away with it.
Yes. And the point is this. We know the consequences. These aren't things we are guessing. We understand the consequences. We are in 2020. If you start heating up this political machinery right now,
What do you expect is going to happen in the next 1.5 years?
yes, It's some people are deliberately getting it to boil, not to boiling point, to boiling, bubbling point.
Because of the fact that
They
you
want
still
it to
have
evaporate.
you still
Yes.
have some political remnants of some kind of sensationalism that really are resident in the hearts and minds of many a Kenyan. And all you need to do is strike a match with some of these utterances, and you would be surprised at what would happen today. And we can't ignore that
You-
or say
you
that we're
want to
being
dim-
that we're being sensationalist. No, I don't think so.
You want to dim such aspersions to the point where someone doesn't even allow that thought to cross their minds.
If you were to strip them of those civil liberties, then how do we go about it?
Well, the thing is,
How do we
this,
ensure that we arrest somebody today and they go to court and case is determined within a week, for instance?
we've had this discussion, and you had even people who understand the law better than we do, and they've told us that the Chief Justice has set in motion certain courts that are supposed to take into account certain things. It can be done. Believe me, let me put it this way, there's nothing stopping them from having these special cases. Nothing. Right now, we're reading the paper today how Sonko's case has been brought forward. So what mechanism of this is now January 27th.
How did they manage to
That
do that?
same mechanism can be used. We have what you call certificate of urgency when you want to deal with matters. Now, again, use it. If you have something that requires perhaps interpretation, we have courts that do precisely that, and those things can be fairly speedy. I'm saying,
But in this particular case, actually, it's translation or interpretation of what somebody has said.
yes.
So it's not really about the law. You're coming and saying this person has violated this law and the other, but it's with what they have said. So the onus of proving that what they said was inflammatory is where the problem would come in.
It would come in, but Eric, even if they are not found to be guilty, the fact that you'll be held accountable for what you
have
say,
said
that in itself is a
is
deterrent.
enough, yeah.
We don't have enough deterrence.
That in itself is enough to deter, for
You'll
sure.
think again before you open your mouth
mouth.
to say something inflammatory.
Taken to court. It's 9:30. Let's take a look at what's happening on the road shortly.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Traffic. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic
Make
ballads.
some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Things are definitely heating up on Thika Road, of course, now seeing what is quite the heated protest happening at Mwiki Kasarani. And that means that Matatu operators and other road users have decided that they will stay in that area and protest until something is done. There are police in the area, so that means that's affecting traffic in the nearer Thika Road. So that's what we see as causing any kind of mayhem right now this morning. Of course, Langata Road and Mombasa Road are not speaking up for us either. So you're stuck there if you're on that road. There is this sentiment that somebody of some importance is leaving or arriving off Langata Road, and this is affecting what's happening on Bagadi Way. But we will see in a short while what that is, because we do have quite the heavy police presence there. So it could only mean one thing. Traffic is slow but moving right into the city centre, coming down from Uhuru Highway around Nyayo Stadium. Looking a lot better now, though. So as per traffic, it's what we expect around this time. Anything out of the ordinary is what we'll take and share. But for now, everything looks to be okay.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
I have an idea. In order for us to fast track, prosecution and conclusion of these hate speech cases, Why don't we set up the same way we have, arbitration and other alternative dispute resolution mechanisms? So we have NCIC actually having, let's say, wazes who are judges.
Does NCIC call people out?
It does.
Say, come. We've heard you've said this. Come, sit down, have a conversation. Let's hear what you said. Do they have prosecutorial powers?
It does. No, they have powers to investigate, and no, they actually also bring in the DCI to investigate. So what they do is they monitor. And when they have, a matter that needs to be investigated further, they co-opt the DCI to investigate, and then the case is taken to the DPP. And I'm saying, let's fast track this whole process. Have people, for example, per region. In this particular area of the Meru region or Meru Embu, you have some certain people who you'll take these cases to. So if somebody makes an inflammatory statement in any of those languages there, arrest, take them to court immediately. This person sits there, understands the languages, because it's all about interpretation of what somebody has said. Somebody who understands language sits there, says, this is what this person was making. This is a kind of statement that this person made, and we feel it was inflammatory, and it's upon that person to actually determine, yes, it was right, it was wrong, and they have the powers to sentence you, or to punish you. We move on from that point. This thing of taking it to court, and it's about interpretation. Oh, this is what I said, but this is what I meant. If you have to translate it in vernacular, especially when it goes into vernacular, this is what I was saying, but in vernacular, this word has this other kind of meaning. It could also be interpreted this way or the other. And you're telling a judge who is not a member of that tribe, who does not speak that language. So he's basically just depending on how much defense this person puts up.
One of the things that has been prevalent in America since President Trump came into power has been incidences of racism. It seems to have spiked, not increased, spiked. And we've seen this with shootings, we've seen this with incidences that have actually been aimed at what you call minority communities and communities who are not necessarily white. Now, these things begin with utterances. If you go down in history, the Americans had one president, a very interesting fellow, called Andrew Jackson. Now, surprisingly, this is the same gentleman who actually founded the Democratic Party. Okay? But it was called the Jacksonian democracy, actually, now. What many people don't know, this man was a massive slave owner, had a huge plantation. His utterances against black people were notorious. But most significantly, when he was president, one of the things that he did, he signed what they call the Indian Removal Act. He himself was a general during
the Civil War.
Yes, but of significance, he is credited with having massacred an entire Native American community.
Right.
All right? It's called the Red Sticks. Now, what many people do not know is that the people who actually genuinely fought for the freeing of the slaves in America were actually the Republicans, not the Democrats. Okay. So, these people you keep hearing of and you keep hearing mentioned, like the famous president who is famed for having not only stopped but emancipated the slaves. What's his name again?
George Washington.
No.
Abraham Lincoln,
Thank
sorry.
you,
Lincoln.
Thank you. See, yes, good. Yes,
thank you.
Good. Yes. People assume he was a Democrat. He wasn't. Now, the thing about history, it doesn't lose these facts. And now with this modern time, that information, once it enters the medium, the digital medium, that thing will not be lost. It doesn't matter what you do. You can't burn it, you actually can't erase it, and it cannot be forgotten. But you see the consequences of it in modern times. The long-term history of some of these things are the things that one must take into account, because there is always a price to pay. Yes. The invoice may not come in
immediately.
But it will eventually come.
We need to fast track it. This eventually thing is not working. In the case of Kenya, it's not working because we've seen where it has taken us. It has taken us right there to the edge.
Well, of course, then it definitely
2007,
paves the way.
we went close to that. And that's why we came up with all these commissions, the NCIC. We came up with these new laws. We talked about, in fact, hate speech now became a buzzword in this country. Why? Because of what was happening prior to 2007. If we continue having people making these kind of inflammatory statements now, and nothing is done to them, no action is taken against them, even when action is taken, it takes forever before this case is concluded. This is normalizing. We are normalizing hate speech. We need to stop it right in its tracks.
But then again, if I still go back to the NCIC and we look and we're asking ourselves what needs to be done, there was a time when they were hot on the heels of anybody who said anything.
Yep.
From, the days of Ruben Dolo and again, coming back to Babu Owino, again, Moses Kuria. There were some people who were notorious for saying things like this. And at some time, they were hot and heavy on the heels of them. And then after some time,
Story just goes.
it died. The fire disappeared. And that doesn't mean that these utterances did not continue to be made. But then again, even that there was either some fear or some reluctance in actually going forward with some of these things that they were mandated to do. So again, that comes into play because again, you're dealing with individuals, and at some point there's some kind of political affiliation or friendship. Somebody says, okay, well, a slap on the wrist is enough for you.
Take center stage.
Absolutely.
If you start
Every
arresting
time.
people now, they'll start looking at, you're arresting only Tanga people.
Yes, they
When
will.
Babu Owino spoke, because he's not in Tanga, he's not been arrested.
Yes.
But because Cherargei is in Tanga, he is in court. When Moses Kuria speaks because he's in Tanga, he's arrested. But this is where now the problems start coming in. And you start looking like you're approaching this thing on a partisan point.
Actually, I find looking at the US of A, because they had serious racial issues.
Still do. Yeah.
When I say had, I mean they did. And one of the things that people forget, you look at South Africa, who actually institutionalized and constitutionalized separatism, and you forget that in the South, segregation was actually considered normal.
And that's why you had people become famous like Rosa Parks and Harriet Tubman because at the height of segregation and, this kind of separation that we see, you were not even allowed to be in the same space. And things that people had said previously, some of the things that we see documented in history of utterances that people made even then, my goodness.
People won seats. There was a famous governor of Alabama, somebody by the name of George Wallace. The things that fellow, but he apologized. At some point he said, I was wrong. He apologized. But even in modern day, during the
What
times
action was taken against him?
Nothing.
Oh, well, some people took a pot. It's not a pot. He was shot at. Okay? But nothing.
Legally, nothing happened.
Those utterances, you see, when you have such situations, why am I pointing to America? Because there are many live examples over a long period of time of racism and how it played out. And a lot of it was exacerbated by utterances, things that people said. And they didn't think twice. Now, unfortunately, we're in the 21st century. Lo and behold, they have a president who doesn't seem to care very much about what he says. Now, these are utterances. These ones have consequences. The issue in Iran, that fellow he's very, very fortunate. The role of chance has assisted him greatly. That it so happened at that same time a mistake was made, and the Iranian military actually shot down a civilian plane.
So a lot of attention was taken off of him.
Completely off him. Completely off him.
Yeah.
But off him in the sense that it isn't a universal discussion, but at home, the discussion about the impeachment is right
taken
on
center
track.
stage. Boom.
Yes.
There you go. And that is exactly what, in this case, yes, luck has played its chance has played its part to actually have him relieved from all of this. But you know what? The utterances that he's made, again, giving example to the fact of how dangerous they can be, the utterances that he has made resonate with a great percentage of the population who voted for him.
Yes.
And all they needed was this fire to be lit under what it is that they already were inhibiting.
Look, the American South even had organized groups known Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah.
Some of their members even ran for positions of governance.
Some of their members were in the Republican Party.
Were not the Republican Party. Some were in the Senate. Some were in Congress. What am I saying? I am saying that in this country, we shouldn't allow ourselves to get to that point where we consider it normal. Because right now we do.
Oh, normal. It's normal.
You consider,
you expect them to say something. Yes. In fact, when you see some utterances of a political nature being made, you expect that in the following instance, one of these fellows is going to say something derogatory. Unfortunately, that's how we start to think, because it has become normal. You say, give it a minute. Somebody is going to have a right of reply, and that right of reply is going to be something utterly nasty, and lo and behold, that is exactly what happens. And I think, yes, the psyche needs to be rejigged, and these things should not be allowed. And yes, prosecutions should be instant, a day, 2. You said this.
Sort
go.
it
out, and let's
CT,
move.
you started by saying, unless we take this seriously,
Yes.
we are not going to heal ourselves.
No, we are not. It has to be. Look, there are things you discourage.
There must be something that you had in mind.
Yes.
How do we take this seriously? How do we ensure that this does not continue?
You see, one of the things that the public does in such instances, without even perhaps knowing it, they help it encouraging it. Why? Because they consider these utterances as entertainment, something to laugh about, something to amuse. And I'm saying that these things are not meant for amusement, and neither are they as harmless as people assume. They're not harmless at all. And that is why I'm giving the examples of the consequences in places where people assumed that these things were actually normal and that attention shouldn't be paid to them. And yet, with the passage of time, the consequences, when they were brought to bear, it was one of these invoices that you didn't really want to pay for, because the cost was actually very heavy. And it starts off with things that people consider innocuous and things that they feel they should actually not pay too much attention to. And yet the truth of the matter is, but Eric, you asked me the question, so let me answer it directly, okay? One of the things that I think we have normalized in our country is simply not just utterances of the nature we have been speaking, but utterances when it's against, say, for instance, a body like, say, the IEBC. You may disagree with the IEBC, but there are certain things that people have said over time which actually amount to threats. They amount to things that should actually be actioned on. There have been such utterances made against the judiciary. It's not saying, look, the judiciary is wrong and this. No. Utterances that amount to something inflammatory. But because, well, we've had people being taken to court, yes, but with no consequences that you can speak of. So it's considered a non-issue. Now, the problem with this is that every time you have a rally, every time you have a gathering of people, what you then expect is there will be individuals who will come out. Now, if I were in a political party, there are certain individuals who might actually be barred from speaking in public.
Ever.
That's it.
And not
Represent the party.
and not for a short time. Ever.
You're not going to talk on their behalf. Stop. You do
ban
not
them from participating.
Don't speak. Attend meetings. You're not speaking publicly, because you cannot be responsible for the things you say. The things you say are not useful. Now, the moment parties, for instance, take that action against their members, then who are they going to be speaking? On whose behalf are they going to be speaking?
They'll make sure that, they don't speak like that,
Yes,
because there
there'll
are
be-
consequences.
And not only that,
Direct consequences.
you will not be given any public
Platform.
airtime.
You don't get a platform.
It's gone.
Politician without a platform, that
Is
is
a reduced politician.
completely. It's 14 minutes to 10 o'clock. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
It's important sometimes to take a step back in history. And this is what we're talking about, words to the wise. And look back at prominent personalities in history and what they said then, and then relating it to the current
reality on the
affairs
ground.
and the reality on the ground and what is being said now, right?
Well, looking back, a false image of ourselves. In June 1979, former Chancellor Helmut Schmidt of West Germany made this comment about his country. Germany is not a world power. It does not wish to become a world power. Of course, juxtapose that against what is happening today with where Germany actually is. In August of the same year, General Olusegun Obasanjo said of Nigeria during his thank you tour of Ogun State, Nigeria will become one of the 10 leading nations in the world by the end of the century. of the century. The contrast between these two leaders speaks for itself. A sober, almost self-deprecatory attitude on the one hand and a flamboyant imaginary self-concept of the other. Understand, this was being written by the world-renowned literary genius Chinua Achebe. One of the commonest manifestations of underdevelopment is a tendency among the ruling elite to live in a world of make-believe and unrealistic expectations. This is the cargo cult mentality that anthropologists sometimes speak about, a belief by backward people that someday, without any exertion whatsoever on their own part, a ferry ship will dock in their harbor laden with every goodie they have always dreamed of possessing.
He was too harsh.
You think?
This is in the book, The Trouble with Nigeria. And I think, he compared the two leaders. So one is a Nigerian leader, and this is what the Nigerian president is saying, promising lofty things. And this is the leader of Germany, who is being very, very, cagey with, or measured with what he
in terms
says.
of being expectant of what could come in the future and saying, okay, but for now, we don't want to be a world power. Essentially, what we're trying to do is work on ourselves and make sure that we are an efficient running development machine. And that's what we're dealing with. Nigeria, on the other hand, instead of looking at sorting out what should be sorted out, okay, and then before then, look at what Germany is today, controlling a lot of what comes out of the West in Europe, for example. But then look at Nigeria and what has happened. Shall we count the things that have gone wrong in the country? We were talking about being a world power, of course, still with the potential to be. But then in reality, what has actually happened? Was that a false image? Was it false expectation? Or was it true? In Olusegun Obasanjo's expectations of what this country could be, and then what let it down.
So he was promising this by the end of the century.
End of the century, and I think that has ended. No?
This is in 1999. By
So
end of
actually
1999, Nigeria, that was 30 years, from 79 to 99. Nigeria will become,
20,
that's 20 years. Nigeria will become one of the 10 leading nations in the world by the end of the century. In 20 years, the president of Nigeria was promising that this General Olusegun Obasanjo was promising that we'll be one of the 10 leading nations in the world.
Okay, maybe with what he saw and the things that he saw in terms of potential, it could be that is what he was actually looking forward and saying, this is actually what we could do. However, with then the reality on the ground today, looking back in history about what was said and looking at then what it is today, still potential.
Optimism.
And that potential has not manifested in anything that would then say, yes, I can see where this gentleman was coming from. Whereas with Germany, it was the absolute opposite. Total opposite. Said in the same year, same time.
We are not a world power, and Germany does not wish to become a world power. And then Germany became a world power in 20 years.
Yes, it did.
Take, for instance, South Africa. There's a gentleman called Malema. He had some utterances a while back that had dire consequences. He pronounced, kill the Boer.
Yes, he did.
Directly.
No, just. Now, was he arrested? Does anybody remember if he was arrested?
No, I don't think he was.
No, he was questioned. There are people who spoke against it. But I don't recall him actually being arrested. I recall people censuring him. But now, there was a gentleman, a politician, a minister at this point in time in this country. He was called Okondo Abenga. Now, Abenga Okondo was known to make utterances. He spoke in a manner that one could refer to as careless. Now, on an occasion, there was a critic of the government, a gentleman by the name of Bishop Muge. And Bishop Muge had been on a trip, I think, from his Eldoret diocese. He had gone to the western part of the country. And Okondo had made utterances to the effect that the gentleman might not live very long. Unfortunately, the bishop was involved in an accident. No, he was involved in an accident and he died.
And he did die.
Okondo had to resign. There was a direct... Look, it was an accident. Unless you're going to say that he's the one who actually brought about the accident. But there was an utterance that had dire consequences for him.
Accidents in this country are not always accidents.
That is also now... That's what it played into. But it could very well have
been an accident.
Yes. Now, politicians, there's one politician in this country who made a certain analogy and an utterance that has caught on about a dog, the master, and the barking, and whether you should take the barking seriously or not, or whether you should look to the master. Those are utterances. And then there are people who've made analogies that are even humorous, like a football field and the players and so on, so has the ball and so on. Those are utterances. Now, there are many utterances that are not necessarily inflammatory. Some are actually genuinely humorous. But by and large, the ones we speak of are the ones which have connotations of tribalism, negative ethnicity, and which actually profile individuals and bring about harm, and the consequence of which we are all too aware about. Politicians will be politicians, and the tool they use for politicking is actually words. And they must be held accountable for these words.
Well,
This is really
absolutely.
essence
And
what
here
I'm
we
saying.
are saying that, over time they have not been. And they'll also have felt that they've come to some lofty place where they can't be held accountable or they can't be asked questions about the things that they will essentially say. And I think we're at that point where we say it is enough. It cannot continue like this. Because apart from people being generally hurt, you kind of do something to the psyche of the people who are used to hearing things like this, and it's easy then to ignite them in a certain direction. Whether we want to admit it or not, we lay right in the wake of that kind of danger when we allow such things to continue. And absolutely, we need to continue putting it in the ear of those who hear and those who listen and those who are in a position to do something about it, to say this cannot continue to happen.
For how long should we let it happen before we take any action?
We should take action immediately. I mean, remember we did discuss
Which is why I
the
was
issue
asking you
of-
to be directly prescriptive, City, because yes, you've raised the issue, and we've gone into the the nitty gritties, the roundabout way about it. Now let's just conclude. What do you want? Just to put it plainly.
You mean apart from my asking that such people should be arrested?
Sasa unataka?
Meaning apart from having them arrested and if found guilty, shot. You mean beyond that?
Yes.
What you'd like me to say? No. Actually, this one doesn't follow that category of thought. This one follows the category of thought which says, look, there's an audience that lap up this sort of communication and they like it. Aside from simply ensuring that action is taken, more action needs to be taken in getting people to understand why such utterances are harmful. Because some people just lap it up without thinking that this can actually be. They don't. And unless they're told categorically and graphically that, look, this is how harmful it is and this is what it does. Why do you think, for instance, Rwanda has a museum which has skulls of
For people to remember.
Yes.
It's remembrance for people to remember this is how close.
This is what happened.
This is what happened. And with this, we can come very close to this again.
Yes. I'm saying there's need for that sort of remembrance and that need of understanding and that need for public education because...
But you're assuming it's not there, City.
It
It's
isn't.
there.
Okay, where does
It's
it take
there.
place?
Kenya?
Where? No.
It's there.
Eric knows about it. Tell me where does
No,
it take place?
you're assuming that it's not there.
It
You're assuming
isn't.
that people do not know that it's wrong to say
The import,
these
no,
things.
they don't. They don't get the import, Eric.
Who doesn't?
The general public doesn't get the import.
The people who laugh
People
about
of
it and
this
wait in the
sort
bleachers
would
to
not
see.
continue doing what they're doing if there was no following. The people actually love those things. They lap it up. They enjoy that sort of conversation.
So
Believe me.
whose job is it to ensure that they know, that they understand what you want them to
We have
understand?
what is it? Is the NC? What is it?
It's a commission,
That one.
National Cohesion and Integration Commission.
Yep, they have
What do
their-
you want them to
they
do
have their
besides
job
beyond what
cut
they
out.
do?
Beyond
They have
what
a lot
they
of work to do.
No, I'm going to be prescriptive. You must be able to start at the level of schools. Remember, all my discussions begin in school. Talk about what hatred does. Talk about what divisions do. Talk about what utterances do. These children are taught languages and they know. Give examples. When you talk civic education, build it up over time and let them understand the consequence. So they grow up knowing. So you cannot then say that they don't know. Yes. So
It's imbibed at a very young
even
age.
within your own community or within a community where people speak your language, when someone make utterances that are anti a certain clan, same language, same community, you then know this is wrong because you have been taught. Start it from the school level, build it up. This civic education they keep talking about, let it be about the harmful nature of some of these utterances.
Let's see, the work is cut out for the NCIC. Of course, we should be bringing somebody from NCIC one of these fine days so we can put them to task and ask them, what exactly do you people do? Do we pay you to do what you're doing, right? So the adults in the room yesterday had a topic. What etiquette should one observe when visiting a friend at the hospital? Some of these things, these are things that you actually sometimes ignore. But when you're going to visit somebody in hospital,
They're actually quite humorous about it. I listened to the show. Quite humorous. The truth of the matter is this. when you keep pointing out such things as they are doing, you're bringing the reality of things that someone may not be aware of to the fore. So you realize this thing that you do, which you think is normal, is actually not normal, neither is it polite. Je, hu ni ungwana?
This is it. It's actually Jehu Nyungwana. Somebody says, when visiting a patient in the hospital, encourage them, sweet talk, put a smiling face, and then by inducing stories of triumph of the same condition, give them overwhelming hope, even if their condition is getting worse. Of course, then there are those people who talk about someone has come to visit you, you're in this bed, and there are others in the neighboring bed, but you take over the entire ward. This group of people, they're laughing loudly. They've taken over the entire ward. It's like this is the only patient.
They even break down into song.
They even start singing, praying loudly. You've got to understand everybody's condition and that everybody's there. That's what you'll get This is what you'll get this and every evening between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. The adults in the room, Eric, Emmanuel, and Barbara. They'll be with you 7 to 10. Before that,